What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined with my tag team partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 109, coming here live on a Friday night, 9:18 p.m. Eastern right now, right in the middle of ALDS elimination game 5 between the Detroit Tigers and the Seattle Mariners. So we are watching that one with bated breath here, but lots to talk about tonight. Some postmortems, some look-aheads, so let's get it going.
Yeah, as we were looking at the format for the schedule, the preview of the DS series, of course, lined up Friday night, no games. But with all the game 5s, and we're lucky enough to have them, it segmented our preview shows. So we'll be doing some previewing, some postmortem, as Devin mentioned, and some conversations looking ahead to the future with the Arizona Fall League kicking up. But if you want to support our show, you can follow us at Tablesetterspod on IG. If maybe you're watching us live on Twitter, this is our 3rd edition of our live shows that we've been doing. And I think they're working out pretty nicely. And if you guys are in the chat, jump in there. Let us know what you think about Tarek Skubal. Is this a legacy game for him? If he loses this and the Mariners potentially beat him for the 4th time in 1 year, what does that mean for what will eventually be an award-winning Cy Young season for Tarek Skubal? But does he have the stink of not being able to do it in the postseason? So a lot of conversation happened around the world of baseball, Devin.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. 1-0 as we sit here. Seattle Mariners up, but Skubal's looked really good, struck out a bunch of dudes. It's going to be a tight one. This is, as baseball fans, I think this is what we want. This is what we ask for, these tight, nerve-wracking games where even if it's not one of your teams, you're kind of on the edge of your seat as you watch it. And listen, one team, one fan base is going to be heartbroken in an hour or so, maybe more. And we've already had a few teams that are feeling that heartbreak, and that sting is still there and is going to be there for a while. For some, a little stronger, a little more memorable, not so much in a good way than others. And I think that's where we're going to go for the top of the show, if you guys catch my drift here.
Yeah, the ending came suddenly, cruelly, and really almost unbelievably. A routine comebacker, a clean out waiting to happen, and then we had some chaos. The bottom of the 11th inning at Dodger Stadium with the bases loaded, 2 outs. Orion Kerkering fielded a soft grounder off the bat of Andy Paez, and the rookie right-hander, one of Philadelphia's brightest bullpen arms, reached down, bobbled the ball for a split second, and then somehow made that fateful decision. Instead of flipping it easily to first for the inning ended out, he spun around high and wide and offline, and the Dodgers advanced the NLCS. What were your feelings watching this game live? Because we were talking about in the chat, it was simply unbelievable. Because you think about mental errors and the pressure in the game, but watching him toss that ball so wayward, so many thoughts went through my head.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that moment. There's a lot of different ways to go. My instant reaction, and I tweeted it out, and it's interesting because it's probably one of our most viewed and reacted to tweets that we've ever put out there, people on both sides of the fence. But my initial reaction was, I feel terrible for Orion Kerkering, a guy who just a couple years into his career here, already lots of playoff experience. I mean, 2 years ago, I think he came up and was pitching against the Braves, gave up a bomb to Acuna, but also had some really bright moments. It's been a little up and down for him. I've been one person that has said for a couple years now, give him the closer job. This year was a little more rocky for him. He did not look quite as dominant. He's had some moments. He's had trouble with men on base. So to see him come into the game with the bases loaded in the highest pressure moment, I think a lot of people were a bit surprised. I know they wanted the righty-righty matchup, but Kerkering, I mean, has not been nails by any means in that type of situation. It's the last thing I expected to happen. They meet on the mound. I'm sure they talked about that kind of stuff, right? Like, he's coming out of the bullpen, so I'm sure he's already figured out how he's going to pitch to Paez. I don't think that meeting is about that. I think it's about, all right, listen, if this happens, we do this. If this happens, we do that. Here's the thing, guys. Like, that stuff goes out the window after you miss the ball on the first try. As soon as he misses the ball, the volume goes way up. And if you're a human, no matter how many dollars you're being paid, I know that's something people like to throw out there, like, you know, he deserves everything he gets because he's making millions of dollars, which he's not yet, but he will be soon. It doesn't matter, man. The human component, that pressure, there is a natural panic. He should know that there's a force at every base. I'm sure he knew that. He explained after the game, listen, I thought the throw to home was an easier throw straight ahead than having to turn, rotate, and throw to first. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think there's a high probability if he had thrown to first, it was probably going to be a bad throw. If you watched kind of the panic already in his eyes, I'm not so sure it was going to matter which base he went to. The crazy thing is because Kim missed home the first time, and yes, he did go back. A lot of people are showing this and not showing the 4 seconds after where he comes back and touches. But if that throw is on target, he may have been out, and then there may have been a catcher's interference challenge, something like that in the path of the runner. It might have gotten real messy. And you've brought up a few times, like, what's going to happen if like a elimination playoff game ends with like a lame catcher's interference call, or when ABS comes back around, something like that, you know? And that is a good question. I feel like we almost had that last night. But yeah, if you're asking me for my instant reaction, like, as someone who played baseball for years and know how lonely it feels when you make a huge mistake in a huge moment, I mean, I can't imagine that is a million times bigger than what any of us who played baseball through high school or college have actually felt. So to see that, I mean, I'm a Phillies hater. If you've listened to this show before, you see the Mets hat. I'm wearing it pretty frequently. I am a diehard Mets fan. I hate everything Philadelphia sports. With that being said, like, typically if Phillies lose an elimination game, I'm in a celebratory mood. I felt sad for the dude. Maybe not the franchise as a whole, because they don't really feel bad for the Mets when they get eliminated, nor does their fan base. They celebrate, they dance on our grave. So it's not me feeling bad for the Phillies as a franchise necessarily, but as the guy himself, Kerkering, I feel terrible for the dude.
Yeah, and just a shout out to Ron Kerkering for having the maturity and the ability to stand in front of the media, because he did not have to. We watched even recently in another sport, but the NFL, Mark Andrews sat in the trainer's room, did not talk after dropping the pass that eventually lost them the postseason game for them. He sat there, answered questions. You mentioned him talking about the pressure, about talking about the situation, that the throw felt more realistic to Real Muto than having to cross body it to Bryce Harper. And he even called it a horse shit throw. That's what he called it. And he said, this really fucking sucks right now. And there's no sugarcoating it. I think the Phillies season ending on the error, I think it will be one of the more painful losses in recent postseason memory for all teams accounted for. The Dodgers, of course, advanced the NLCS. That's the main story here. And Philadelphia's October run is now over. And we'll spend a lot of time during the offseason eulogizing them, because we've been referencing that on the whole time on the show about this 2025 Phillies. It will not be the same next year, this cast of characters. And you can kind of feel the emotion with Rob Thompson. You can feel the emotion with Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber. It was almost like saddening to watch, even if you're not a Phillies fan, knowing that they're not going to be on the bus riding to the eventual championship or trying to cash in on this window, because this somehow feels familiar for this Philadelphia core. Going back to 2022, they won the pennant. They lost the NLCS in shocking fashion in 2023, lost the NLDS each of the past 2 seasons. And it feels like the same script. You get some flashes of brilliance from them and ultimately ending in heartbreak. So I don't know what to make of this. Maybe a shakeup to this core is what they need to advance. And I know the error is going to loom large, and people are comparing it to the Bill Buckner error, and I'm not sure it's quite there. But I feel like the loss to the Diamondbacks was more egregious, more hurtful, and more choke-worthy than this. They were already down and out. Yes, you would have went to a beleaguered Dodgers bullpen. You would have went into the 12th inning with the advantage in your favor, but ultimately it was an uphill climb. I think if we're able to look at this with clean foresight and hindsight, you have to look at the Diamondbacks losses in 2023 as more egregious, in my opinion. But that's just how I feel.
Maybe more egregious, but I'm not sure it was more painful, just because now this is all snowballed together. I mean, the loss to the Mets last year too, with some of the epic moments, Francisco Lindor walking them off, things like that. That was super painful against an arch rival as well. And it's just another postseason where the offense underperformed. Like, right, the story today is the Kerkering stuff. But a lot of the pitching we saw from the Philadelphia Phillies was absolutely brilliant against one of the best lineups, not of just this season, but of all time. What they did taking Shohei Ohtani away. I mean, imagine telling them before the series, hey guys, Shohei Ohtani, you're going to keep him to 1 hit in the entire series, and he's going to strike out double-digit amount of times. You taking that? We're not going to tell you the result of this series. Are you going to take that? They're all saying yes a million times over. Like, if that happens, we're winning this series. We're probably sweeping the series. But what that does not affect is how your own hitters do. And listen, aside from Kyle Schwarber having a 2-home run game in Game 3, other than that, there was not a lot to speak of on the side of the Philadelphia Phillies and their offense. I mean, Bryce Harper did not have a year, not just a series, but did not have a season to write home about. It was not one of his great seasons there. Maybe he was a little banged up. We don't know all those things right away. Trey Turner was very, very good for most of the year. Then the injuries happened, which kind of took some wind out of his sails. A guy like Real Muto, who I think we're going to talk about a bit, if not now, soon in the offseason, but a guy who is still pretty good behind the plate. 35-year-old catcher. The offense has dwindled, although he was pretty good offensively in the series. We could go on, but this is a star-laden lineup, and lots of money is being paid to some of these guys, older guys. And for the most part, as a whole, they did not show up. Christopher Sanchez on the pitching side, Jesus Luzardo, fantastic. The plan by Rob Thompson, which I thought was awful. I'm not going to try to go back and act like I liked it. I tweeted about it with Aaron Nola pitching in the beginning and then Ranger Suarez coming in. I hated that idea. It worked out brilliantly for them. Perfect. And then the bullpen had its moments there, but overall they did not score enough runs. And I don't know. I'm undecided of whether there's going to be a true reckoning in Philadelphia here and if it's going to look a lot different, because all I keep on hearing leadership like John Middleton say is that they want all these guys back. I don't think that's reality, but I've heard that plenty of times that they want to bring these guys back. And it's risky because giving these guys lots more years that are up there in age, a lot of them, not just a few of them, it's definitely has its risk. So I guess we'll see. It's going to be some tough decisions in Philadelphia.
Yeah, the offseason ahead will definitely be a crossroads moment for the front office. You mentioned some of the key players that are in free agency. Kyle Schwarber main eventing there. JT Realmuto. You mentioned Suarez as well. Harrison Bader has an option. Alvarado has an option. Castellanos is entering the final year of his deal. He could be traded after the stuff that went on with Rob Thompson. That was highly talked about. Maybe there is a clash because when we talk about Rob Thompson, I think a lot of people love the job he's done. Bryce Harper's come out and said that he is a huge fan of him, one of the best managers he's ever played for throughout all the levels of baseball. So I think the outlier is the Castellanos thing. I don't think Rob Thompson rubs everybody the wrong way, and I think Castellanos is an enigma in its own right. He is a personality, so maybe they just don't mix, and managing a aging player with a decreased skill set is challenging, and it's also the ego you're managing too of Castellanos, who's not the same player he was when he first came to Philadelphia. There's no doubt about it. He was compromised on the bases. We saw that time and time again, even in this first series as well. So to me, it's hard to imagine the Phillies without Schwarber. He's been really the heartbeat of the clubhouse. I guess Bryce Harper is the guy, but he's the tone setter. And I know he was quiet outside of the home runs he hit in that one game. But I think the real financial and philosophical question is, does his offense need the shakeup that maybe fans are looking for? Does the bullpen need some retooling? Can this team be built around the power the same way? Or are they going to make a real change? So what comes next about this regroup in the winter? First, you have to let this emotion die down a little bit, think reasonably. They're bruised but not broken. I think this Philadelphia team will be just fine. But the culture Rob Thompson has clearly put in place is intact. Watching him react to the Orion Kirkland thing, that is leadership in real time, answering questions and being accountable. This is what we saw when he was with the Yankees as well. This is a true leader. He's a guy who honestly sets the tone and keeps it going. So shout out to Rob Thompson. And through this, hopefully Kirkland will get his moment for redemption somewhere down the line.
Yeah. Use it as fuel to just get better and better and better and become that dominant guy. I think a lot of us have seen that he may be able to get to at some point. Rob Thompson, interesting because I was never a big fan. And when I saw him immediately console Kirkering as he walked off the field, as I will say, shout out to a lot of the Phillies who did that pretty fast. It's not easy to do that, even if you're a really good teammate. It's not. Maybe a little bit after the fact, but right away, I was very impressed with that. But to see Thompson put his arms around him right away and reassure him immediately without missing a beat, he really won me over. With that being said, I think I don't see him surviving this. I do think he's gone.
Interesting.
I'm not saying he deserves to be, but I think the Phillies are honest when they say we really want to keep the team pretty much intact, but there has to be a change after now 4 misses. When you're supposed to be going further and you're actually getting eliminated what seems like earlier and earlier each year. And honestly, these last 2 years, they've really gone out with kind of a whimper. I do think he's going to be let go. With that being said, as far as the other guys, you said Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, the heartbeat. Lauren Shahadi of MLB Network was around the team a lot this series. And today on MLB Network, she was saying, JT Realmuto is the heartbeat of that team. He is the guy there. He's like, Kyle Schwarber's the nice guy who's nice to everybody. He can talk to everybody. Realmuto is the heartbeat. That's a tough decision, man. 35-year-old catcher. Do you give him another 3-4 years just for leadership and that kind of stuff, knowing that the performance probably isn't going to be the greatest? I don't know if they can afford to, because there's already some contracts there that could be regrettable. You look at Aaron Nola, who this year looked like he was, maybe next year he'll get it back, but he looked like he was on the back end. He's owed $24 million the next, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the next 5 years, about $24 to $25 million a year. He's already 33, got a lot of wear and tear on him. That might be a contract they look back on like, oops. Zach Wheeler, it's easy to say, oh, we're going to get Zach Wheeler back and be fine. Let's see what Zach Wheeler looks like next year. 36 years old. He's making $42 million. You're expecting greatness that he's shown you, but now he's got some injury stuff under him. So we'll see how he comes back from that. I think Luzardo and Christopher Sanchez may be the future of your rotation. I think Andrew Painter will be here pretty early next year, unless something negative or catastrophic happens with him in the offseason. I think we'll see him. Ranger Suarez is a very interesting decision. I think 33 years old. Correct me if I'm wrong. Velocity is a little bit down, but he seems like he just figures it out. He's a pitcher's pitcher. So a lot of teams are going to be interested in him, but he's been with Philly since he was like a teenager. So I'm sure he wants to stay if they'll have him. So pitching, I think, will still be their strength. The lineup decisions are going to be fascinating because Bryce Harper and Schwarber, it sounds like quite a duo. And you mix Trey Turner into things like, oh, this is pretty good. And it just hasn't worked. Castellanos is another $20 million next year. They clearly want to move on from him. But is anyone taking him? I don't know how you get Castellanos out of your hands unless you agree to pay a lot of that money, at least half of it, or you attach a prospect to him that someone's interested in. Say, all right, we'll eat more of that money and we'll take him on as long as you give us this guy in your minor league system that we really like. Maybe that's a way to get it done. But they have so many decisions, and I tweeted today, like, one of the biggest reasons I think this offseason is going to be absolutely wild is because 3 teams that have very large markets that have now gone out in heartbreaking styles, all different styles, but all heartbreaking, the Mets, Yankees, and Phillies. They're hungry to figure things out, and they have money, but they also have lots of decisions to make with guys going into free agency, guys with options. The fact that all 3 of them are in that boat in the same offseason, like anything could happen, man. So there's going to be lots to look at with those 3 teams.
Yeah, and I think the crossover with Philadelphia and New York is definitely there, that they definitely have a blend of similar scenarios. Aaron Judge in New York, the clock is ticking for him. Bryce Harper, the clock is ticking as well for him. He's going to be turning 33 later this October. He's going to be back, of course, there. But we have to have the same conversation. I was listening to some of the media about the post games and Philly and New York and all the reaction stuff you see on these fans on Twitter. Sometimes it's best to avoid social media for the immediate insight into how fans are feeling. Someone was saying, and it really resonated with me, that Philadelphia is not held to the same bar that the Yankees are. That, they won the World Series in 2008. They've been back. The Yankees went back. They're very, very similar. Yanks won in 2009. Of course, Philly went back and lost that, in the second year. They're looking for a back-to-back title. But this core hasn't won. That was a completely different core, just like in 2009. The remnants of that team, it's non-existent. The only thing that's there is Brian Cashman. So this whole team that they're looking to get rid of, and I understand, like, so many franchises, we're talking about some franchises. The Brewers have been to one World Series looking to win their first. Mariners looking to get to their first. So it's easy for us in a big market to be like, oh, it's been 17 years without a Yankees title. But that is the bar here. And that's the bar in Philly. When you spend that money and you put this team in place and their success, and you go out with a whimper, and now you go out with heartbreak, there's a lot of fans that want more. And sometimes that is the precursor to extreme change. And you mentioned, like, Rob Thompson maybe not deserving to go. And maybe some people don't believe Aaron Boone deserves to go, but it feels like something has to shake this up, and something has to be held accountable when you fall short time and time again. And I think more of the conversation is about how much of a crapshoot the postseason is. And I know front offices reference that in free agency when they're putting these teams together. It's such a short period of time where we watch throughout the whole season, the war of attrition that is 162 games. You go cold, and then all of a sudden you get eliminated in 5 games, where you take another subset of 5 games anywhere out through the season, the Phillies could emerge victorious against this same Dodgers team. So I don't know what the answer is. The pressure and the postseason glory has always been this way. They have expanded playoffs, but if you want to be able to win, and we've seen the Dodgers do it repeatedly, there is a formula to do this. The Yankees and the Phillies are unable to make it past these rounds. Of course, the Yankees have a pennant, but they can't shake this monkey off their back, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and Trey Turner made that point in the post game yesterday. He said, like, listen, we still believe the group we have here absolutely could get it done any given year, but it is kind of a crapshoot, like you said, and you got to kind of get hot. You have to have the big moments, or sometimes you take advantage of the low moments, like the Kerkering stuff yesterday, and you get a little bit lucky. If that series goes back to Philly, who knows, man? That's going to be tough for the Dodgers to go there and win a third game in front of that crowd in that series. So, like, on a dime, that whole series could be different. By the way, as we kind of have a live watch party here as well, George Kirby, who is absolutely smooth sailing, dominating, gives up a leadoff double to the hottest hitter in the Detroit lineup, Javi Baez, who just gets into second safely, and they immediately pull Kirby. So not playing around here. A little shocking to see. I mean, I have the volume off, so maybe there's something I'm missing that they're talking about here as I'm also recording and talking, one eye on that, one eye on this. But I don't know. Are you surprised to see Kirby pulled after what was dominance for a little while out there?
A little bit. I think maybe, like you said, we haven't been watching the game as closely for the last 20 minutes as we're recording, but Kirby is one of those cases, and I don't want to get too deep into it. I'm sure we will talk about the Mariners and the Tigers more as the night continues. But Kirby frustrates me, and I think tonight was a better version of him, watching him pitch. He likes to get people out with the pitch he wants to get them out with, and today he was going with the pitch that worked. And a lot of the Seattle Mariners beat writers will talk about Kirby's success. He is loaded with these pitches, and he has a whole bunch of arsenal to get people out, but he seems stubborn in the way he wants to get them out. So it seems like tonight he was all mixing the pitches that were working and befuddling the Tigers lineup. But Baez got him there, and the double ejects him from the game. We'll see if the Mariners bullpen can hold on to this very, very slim lead.
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, talking about the pitch choices he's making, Mike Petriello, who's one of my favorite follows, I've actually retweeted him a couple times today, just today alone, on Twitter. Great baseball mind here. He just actually 20 minutes ago tweeted, "Make sure to establish the fastball, kids," and he showed the pitch breakdown for Kirby to that point. Again, it's 20 minutes ago, so there might be a little update here, but he had thrown the slider 58% of the time, the sinker 17%, four-seam fastball 17% of the time, knuckle curve 6%, and he threw one changeup. So lots of sliders tonight from Kirby, at least early on in the game. So I don't know, that might be talked about, but to see him pulled in a 1-0 game, I mean, he's been great in this series. And now they're going to Gabe Spire here, the left-hander, and we'll see what happens, if it pays off or if it bites them in the ass right away.
So speaking of pitch select, we watched the Blue Jays stay away from the fastball and just pound splitters into the Yankees. And talking about that series, I mean, you can talk about all these games as microcosms. The Aaron Judge moment now pretty much erased. You can talk about it. He's clutch, looking back at the camera, the amazing inside pitch that he turned around on. But in my opinion, the full vision of this series, the Blue Jays didn't just beat the Yankees. I think they exposed them. Game 4 at Yankee Stadium, to me, wasn't a collapse. Didn't feel like heartbreak similar to the Phillies. It was a statement. I mean, 5-2 win here, 3-1 ALDS victory. They sent New York home early and outscoring the Yanks 34-19.
Oh my.
What happened?
Sorry. All right. So it makes more sense now that I see who's coming up. Kerry Carpenter was the man coming up who has hit 5 home runs against Kirby. But guess what he just did against Gabe Spire? 2-run shot immediately. First guy up against the bullpen. And Detroit takes a dramatic 2-1 lead in the top of the 6th with no outs. Carpenter and Javi Baez are going absolutely nuts. And it looks like, again, I have sound off, but it looks like stunned silence in Seattle.
I mean, if you had the volume up, it would probably sound exactly the same. Kerry Carpenter is just like a clutch postseason player he's becoming. He has these moments, ice water in his veins as he goes through. He's showing some rare emotion around in second. I'm a little delayed on YouTube TV, so the home run, as you were talking about, it was sailing over the fence here. But speaking of home runs, the Blue Jays out-homer the Yankees 9-3 across the 4 games. And they were the better team. The thing is, the Blue Jays, everyone watching, the Yankee fans, Jay fans, this wasn't a formula that the Yankees were going to be able to overcome. And we had Aaron Judge, similar to Bryce Harper and all the Phillies that were talking about postmortem of their season. Aaron Judge faced the media. He was definitely saddened. He said, quote, "We didn't do our job. We had a special group in here, but we didn't get the ultimate prize." And it's 16 years, as I mentioned, for the Yankees since their last championship. 16 years of winning just enough to convince everybody that they're close enough, only to run into someone better built for October. And this Blue Jays team was built to win in October. And really the irony of this is supposed to be one of their more impressive seasons. 94 wins, tied for the best record in the American League, the league's best run differential. They did all of this without Garrett Cole. He missed the entire year after Tommy John surgery. They did it without Juan Soto. The plan B worked. The Yankees pivoted with precision. The Max Fried stuff, that worked out. Cody Bellinger worked out. Even Paul Goldschmidt, who tuckered out at the end of the year, they still were able to build a balanced roster. I know that A-Rod was talking about this being one of the more poorly constructed rosters in the history of baseball. That's hyperbolic. You and I were discussing it in the chat. I think that's a little bit extreme to discuss because this team, when it's functioning, certainly does win baseball games with the three true outcomes: walking, getting on base, hitting home runs. They're able to do those things when it's working. The Yankees definitely showed some fight, and I think that will save some people's jobs here. They rallied after the game one loss in the wild card series to Garrett Crochet, and Cam Schlittler walks out of this. He's electric. That's something we're looking forward to next year in 2026. And I think the Toronto stuff is a sobering dose of reality for Yankee fans. They tore the belief apart. There's really no hope. I understand that one game, Yankees came back from 6-1, but the Blue Jays were so well-rounded, and it was coming from all different angles. Yes, Vlad was on fire, but it was coming from Ernie Clement. It was coming from Lucas. It was coming from every corner of this lineup, and the Yankees couldn't keep up with it. So, we'll talk about the Yankees, one of the more stable franchises in baseball history, and maybe that's become the problem because Brian Cashman, being the general manager there, not going to lose your job when you have 28 years, only 3 managers: Joe Torre, Girardi, Aaron Boone, and he kind of reset. People forget that we're older than us, that George Steinbrenner had this fiery rule where it was like an executive fortress, revolving door, get rid of managers. There's been a lot of stability here. No losing season since 1992. What other franchise can tout that? But is that what's getting in the way of them fully resetting and accepting that maybe this isn't working? And I need more weeks and time to digest this loss. But all I know is the Blue Jays deserve this win, and shout out to their fans for showing up.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're going to probably talk about the Yankees a lot in the offseason. Maybe we will even have a special episode just covering them if we can get a guest. I've said to you, we for a while, we've really wanted to get a Yankees beat reporter or a radio or someone that covers them day in, day out very closely to come on here. And we haven't been able to do it yet. It's not easy to get a hold of these guys, but we'll keep on trying. I will say I got to give some more love to the Blue Jays. I think they are such a fascinating team. Again, I'm going to shout out this name. Mike Petriello wrote an article for MLB.com here that was really, really well done, because so many people are out there now saying the Yankees should just try to do what the Blue Jays did: contact. I heard it a lot on John Boy, Jake talking about, they just need to make more contact, not strike out. It's not that simple. I get it. Like, it is fun to watch those teams that put the ball in play. And it has definitely been a little bit of a theme this year with the Brewers, the Blue Jays, even the Dodgers. Yes, they're mighty, but they put the ball in play. That's why they won last night, because Andy Pages put the ball in play, and stuff happens when you put the ball in play. But this article was fascinating because he went deeper and said, listen, it's not just this. The Blue Jays last year were pretty good at contact and not striking out, and they didn't make the playoffs last year. They weren't a good team. So it's not that simple. The addition of working on their swing speed, which apparently as a team was really, really bad the last couple years, they increased that, got much better. That combination seemed to be the key, because here's the thing. Yeah, they put the ball in a play. They contacted the ball more than the Yankees in that series. They also slugged the ball better than the Yankees did that series. So it's not necessarily, listen, if every single Yankee next year comes into the season just trying to contact the ball, a lot of their power might just go by the wayside. And that may not be a winning formula either. A little bit of this article I want to read here. So this is an article from Ernie Clement, who you mentioned, who had a hell of a series. He said, well, first I'll start with this. says, for one thing, the Jays were happy to swing at strikes. This is another part of their strategy. Lots of them. More than 7 out of every 10 pitches in the zone, 71.1% to be exact, resulted in swings. That's easily the most of any division series team this year. And it's the 6th highest of the 152 division series teams on record. That by itself is not inherently good or bad. The regular season team that did this the most was the Rockies, who had MLB's worst record. And the team that did it the least was the Brewers, who had MLB's best record. So it's not as simple as just let's swing at the strikes and be super aggressive. He said, but it does go exactly to what Clement told Sportsnet was their strategy over the summer. So this is Ernie Clement speaking. I think this is a good quote here. He says, we're okay going 0-1 instead of being 0-4-1. So what he's saying is, I'd rather swing at the first pitch because it's a strike and miss it and be in an 0-1 count than not swing at that and then have to swing at a worse pitch later in the count and be 0-1. He says, if you get fooled, swing through it and then battle your tail off the rest of the at-bat. But it goes back to the intent. We're not letting them get us out on a pitcher's pitch in the first couple pitches. If I get out on a fastball down the middle on the first pitch, I'm okay with that. That's my intent. But if I ground out on a pitch that's 2 balls off the plate outside, that's not doing anybody any good. This reminds me of one of the clips of Anthony Volpe in that Game 5. He got a called strike. It was kind of a tough called strike, but they immediately panned to a Yankee fan, and you could read his lips screaming, swing the bat. And then he has 2 strikes on him, and he swings at a miserable pitch, one of the just worst swings I've seen. That is exactly what Clement is saying. Like, I'd rather swing at the strikes and maybe miss and maybe get out than kind of dig myself a hole into a bad count and then have to swing at something just because I'm in protect mode. That's what happens. I tweeted a video about what I thought was a masterful pitching job by Christopher Sanchez against Shohei last night. And I don't remember which at bat it was, but he jams him inside twice, but like perfectly on the knees, on the black, on the first pitch inside. Second one, a little more inside. Shohei swings. Now he's got him 0-2. Shohei's in protect mode. Throws him a changeup a little off the outside corner low. Shohei, bad swing. Great player, bad swing. So all of this, there's so much strategy involved, and there's a lot more to that article. I tweeted it. I suggest you guys read it if you haven't seen it. There's a lot more there, and they talk about the swing speed and the hitting coach that is involved in that later on in the article. But it's fascinating. It's not simple, man. Like, there's so many things, because if you cut down on launch angle, you might take away slug, right? Maybe you take strikeouts out, but you also take home runs out. All this stuff, it's not as easy as just changing one thing. And that's what I found fascinating about the Blue Jays and the article that I'm referencing here.
Yeah, David Popkins is his name, the hitting coach over there. Yeah. And the average bat speed, as you mentioned, rose from dead last in April when they were sitting in last place, all those games back for the Yankees, to top 5 by September and rising here. And for the ALDS, we're watching the aggressive swings and patient approaches, a perfect mix. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Ernie Clement. Guerrero was hitting .529, 3 home runs, 9 RBIs. And the role players, as I mentioned, Clement, Nathan Lucas, combined for 10 RBIs, and which matches the total of the entire Yankees heart of the order. So if you look at that in context, and they make contact with purpose, and that needs to be said. The fan that is irrational, a lot of Yankee fans that show on TV, it's almost like intentional. And I understand they are part of the fan base. You have to accept them, make Yankee fans look really bad, because that is the guy that is you're listening to at a game. It's the same thing when you're at a hockey game. You listen to anytime someone touches the puck in the neutral zone, they're like, shoot the puck. And it's not as easy to do that. And they're the first person to get upset if they, waste the possession and they turn the puck over by shooting it. And it's easy to be a critic from standing in there with your 2 buttons unbuttoned in there, standing in Yankee Stadium and upset. The Blue Jays, they put the ball in play, and when they did it, it mattered. It was old school efficiency. And like you said before, this is a style of offense built for the modern analytics and the old school type of approach, which might be redefining teams. And in vogue is the way teams are modeled, and it has happened across the National League. The Brewers are doing it a little bit differently, but largely the same philosophy. It's both been quietly building, and I think Toronto took last year's performance of their team pretty personally, and they wanted to redefine who they are and do what they do well. So I think when we look at the front offices preaching the mantras, hit the ball hard or put the ball in play, the Jays have shown that you can use modern analytics and still have the elite contact and elite bat speed. They don't have to be mutually exclusive anymore. I think 2025 evolution might become the blueprint of this next generation of team building, where they're going to teach swing speed, don't just recruit it. And I think that's what the Blue Jays are. They're teaching people to swing harder, which Popkins' system trained contact hitters to swing harder without sacrificing, as you mentioned, barrel control, which could be a development revolutionizing the way you're teaching to how to mirror it with how pitching wants to learn to add velocity to command guys. Like, that might be the conversation we're having. I think depth does matter more than stars, where Guerrero and George Springer, of course, they're your guys. They're leading the way, but Toronto was able to take guys like Addison Barger, and we mentioned Ernie Clement, Nathan Lucas, executing the plan because the entire offense was built around it, not guys like Ahmad Rosario. And again, good piece here, was able to hit pitching when it mattered, but he's not a guy who fits into the cog of what this Yankee philosophy is. And if they're not hitting home runs, it kind of exposes them. And I think you mentioned the 71% of strikes. That's so important to talk about. This is the highest of team this postseason, and they knew exactly what pitches they wanted and refused to let hittable ones go by. And you're going to make contact, and you're pressuring the Yankees defense. Let's be honest, was better than we thought it would be. They still had trouble fielding those. And think about the first inning in game 4. The balls are falling on each line. They were just finding the perfect spot. And yes, you could say luck and all that. That's intent. These guys are swinging the ball with intent, and they're going to be a tough outcome this ALCS. And I think they have a real shot at winning it all.
Well, even Miles Straw had an at bat late in game 5 to try to pad the lead at the time. And he's basically a defense guy. He had that moment as a Cleveland Guardian where he got into like a fight with the Yankees outfield fans a couple of years back. So to see him up in that at bat, he's like, you're like, this guy wants to do a little damage here. And he did exactly what you're saying. It looks like almost an excuse me by accident swing, and it just gets lucky and falls in. But even the announcers were talking about, like, no, that's what he intended on doing. Like, just get some contact. I think he had 2 strikes on the count. Just get some contact and get it into play there and hit it over an infield that was in at the time. And that's exactly what happened. The lead gets extended there. And you're right that just everyone 1 through 9 seems to do their job. Another statistic I've always loved on Baseball Savant, some people make fun of me for it because they think it's ridiculous, but meatball swing percentage. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I've referenced it a few times over the last couple of years on this show. It's basically how often are you swinging at the pitches that are basically mistake pitches, fat pitches, right? Center cut kind of pitches. For the year, the Blue Jays were the 11th highest percentage on that. So not necessarily the top, but about 77.4%, I believe it says, 5%. The Yankees are down at about 20. So again, something that maybe goes into their strategy, and it's not that much. It's 75.9. So it's close, but that sometimes makes the difference when you let those good pitches go by, just because maybe you have a philosophy like, I'm not swinging at the first pitch or anything like that. I love that the Blue Jays are going up there. Like, if I get a good pitch, I don't care. Like, maybe not 3-0. Maybe I'm not swinging 3-0 unless I'm Vlad. But like other first pitch, second, whatever the count out, if it's a fat pitch, I'm swinging and trying to do damage there. So yeah, I also the Yankees too. Like, there's just a lot of the philosophy kind of stuff that I think bugs us, whether we're a Yankee fan or not. You mentioned the Ahmed Rosario. I think at least once, maybe twice, pinch hit for McMahon, who actually I think showed himself pretty well in the playoffs this year, even though he wasn't great.
Yeah, the only offense,
but also a wonderful fielder. So you have that risk of putting Rosario in because you want to match him up against a lefty. And then he has to play the field. And a couple times they got exposed where a ball that McMahon probably could have made a play on, he's not there to make it. Ahmed Rosario is not a natural third baseman, came up as a shortstop, probably more of a second baseman than anything else at this point in his career. And he's over there trying to hold his own in a big moment. So there's those little things. And that's what I think we talk about, and A-Rod is referring to when he talks about team building. But the only thing on the Blue Jays side that I'd be concerned about, I will say this. I'm almost convinced my World Series prediction, and it still is a possibility depending on what happens tonight. In fact, I could get my Final Four completely right. I had Mariners-Dodgers and Mariners winning. There's a part of me that feels like the Blue Jays, out of the teams in the AL that are left, have the best chance at competing with the Dodgers. And we're not saying the Dodgers are getting an automatic pass. They're going to have to either beat the Cubs or the Brewers, which we'll talk about. The only thing that concerns me with the Blue Jays is I still am not quite sold on their pitching as a whole. Kevin Gausman still strikes me as a guy at this point in his career who there's a big range of what he can be. He can be that ace that he was for all those years. He's also the guy who can get blown up. He has that in him. He's not necessarily the consistently dominant guy that he was earlier in his career. It's going to be a 7-game series, so you're going to have to get more out of different guys. Max Scherzer, Chris Bassett were not on that roster in the division series. We'll see if they are in the ALCS here. Trey Savage looks fantastic. Still a young kid. You don't know when he's going to have his first hiccup moment that may be looming. And then the bullpen, which was really, really, really good. Obviously, they won that last game with a bullpen game. Everyone pitched pretty outstanding. I know that frustrated you and lots of other Yankee fans. Like, we can't get more than one run on these guys in a bullpen game.
Yeah.
But they were great. I'm just not convinced the bullpen can continue to be that great. And I'm not sure, Jose Barrios is not there, a guy that's pretty consistent, gives you distance in games. I'm not sure how they're going to look in a 7-game series. Like, they don't intimidate me on the pitching side.
So just as we wrap up the Yankees part of this right here, just some numbers under Aaron Boone to really just digest this loss. The Yankees are 25-27 in the postseason, 15-4 against the soft AL Central, 10-23 against everybody else. That means that teams like the Astros, the Red Sox, the Dodgers, the Blue Jays are there 10-23 against those teams. And that's sort of what we saw this year for the 2025 Yankees when they were fattening up on the teams that they were supposed to beat, quote unquote. And then during the marathon stretches of the season when they're playing good teams, they fade a little bit. So it's who they are right now. And I think the Yankees conundrum throughout this offseason, it's been the same conundrum we've had as Yankee fans watching this team. They're too good to tear down, but they're too flawed to finish the job. And it's like this catch-22 where you can't rebuild fully in New York. But at the same time, that's kind of what's holding them back from really advancing this. And the other piece of this is Aaron Judge. We mentioned the fact that the window is still certainly open, winning potentially the AL MVP, has the batting title. What a season it was for him. But the window will quickly slam shut when you have an aging fielder, all that stuff. You kind of want to cash in with one World Series with him at the very least. And as far as the offseason goes, you mentioned having somebody on here to discuss the Yankees. They have as much uncertainty as they had in many years. I mean, the urgency is there, of course. Aaron Judge will be 34 this April. I mentioned before, Cody Bellinger and Trent Grisham are free agents, which the best outfield offensively in baseball, one that led the majors in batting average, OPP, on base percentage, slugging, homers, WAR, suddenly it's completely different. So they have some options right here. None of them are simple. I mean, they could re-sign Bellinger. That makes sense. It's probably going to cost a lot to keep him here, but he's perfect for Yankee Stadium. We love what he brought to the table. Jason Dominguez, what does he bring to this team? He honestly should get a chance to play, and watching him not get the opportunity, you believe that there's some understanding about the limitations he has in the field. Spencer Jones, who's their top prospect, he hit 35 home runs in the minors, but struck out more than a third of the time. I understand like they don't want to add more strikeouts to this lineup, but he's close, and maybe he's going to be added to this equation for the offense. So, and then there's also the bullpen. We can spend all the time talking about them, where Cashman certainly plugged the holes. Make the argument he made the holes himself. I believe Cashman's untouchable. The fans are going to wonder whether that's part of the problem, but I think Cashman is their guy, and I don't think he's going to be let go.
I'd be surprised as well if he is let go. I will say guys like A-Rod, former Yankees, Derek Jeter on national television, kind of alluding to the fact that it's Cashman's fault without saying his name. And I mean, let's be honest, when you're talking about how the team was built and all that stuff and basically saying Boone did a good job, like who else are you referring to? You're referring to Cashman, unless they're kind of trying to poke at, hey, Hal Steinbrenner needs to be like more active and more involved or something like that. But Hal just doesn't strike me as a guy who is gonna be drastic and fire Cashman right now. I feel like he's very status quo with like the management part of the team. Maybe he surprises us, but I don't know if you as a Yankee fan right now, sitting there just a few days after they're eliminated, is there a spot, pick one, that you desperately want them to improve on? And is there one guy that is probably going into free agency, whether it's opt out or other thing, that like you're prioritizing that one guy above everybody else that might be leaving?
My ideal player probably isn't out there. It'd be a guy who doesn't strike out a lot and can increase the defensive side of the ball. So being able to show up third base with an offensive tinge. I understand Ryan McMahon is there. That doesn't mean he's going to be the starting third baseman next year. So is Alex Bregman the guy? Do you go and decide to get a leadership, hard-nosed type of guy who's won wherever he goes? I know that in Boston, he was their guy. They didn't advance past the wild card round, but it wasn't because of Alex Bregman. He's won a World Series with Houston. He's the type of character that could add to this team. I think decreasing strikeouts and adding defense is so important to them, and then fixing this bullpen. And the bullpens are they're glued together. Sometimes they're scotch taped together in the offseason. You don't know what you're going to get. We brought in Devin Williams thinking we have an embarrassment of riches, and he turns into what he was. And honestly, he kind of returned to some normalcy at the end of the year. He wasn't the problem for the Yankees in October. He straightened it out late September and October. But these bullpens are just like you throw some names in a hat, pick them out, and then they become an elite reliever. And I know there has to be more formulaic process to that it's not just random. But that's what it feels like every single year when you have these bullpens that just emerge. All of a sudden, the Dodgers bullpen struggling this year, and another bullpen comes in that they're good. The Diamondbacks bullpen was night and day from what they were the year before and the year this year. So, and largely there's a lot of the same faces. So I don't know what it is, but these bullpens are so temperamental that I think the Yankees need to be able to find an approach thing. The starting pitching is going to be okay. You got Garrett Cole coming back, Cam Schlittler, Luis Heel, Clark Schmidt should be back. And then you got all these other names down
Carlos
the minors.
Rodon, right? You're Max Fried. Like you should have depth, honestly, going into next year. The Garrett Cole thing, I will say, a little bit of an asterisk on him. Like we've seen a lot of these guys, like high profile, really good starting pitchers, come back from Tommy John and not look like themselves for several months. I mean, Sandy Alcantara is the latest example. It is not. There's people out there that say like sometimes you look even better after Tommy John. It's very rarely immediate.
A lot of innings on that arm, man. He's pitching a lot of big games. So I feel like it's just like he's listen, I mean, we could have 2-3 more elite years of Garrett Cole, or you can have the Max Scherzer effect where he just becomes diluted, not able to get guys out. Like that's the risk you're taking.
Right. He might be himself at some point next year, but Yankee fans might have to be patient. It might not be April. It might not be May. He might not look like himself until August. But I think if he looks like himself at all next year, it's a great addition for the Yankees because they do have depth there. Obviously, I'm asking you that question because a lot of people are immediately tweeting about Anthony Volpe. He needs to be gone. Can't be my shortstop for the New York Yankees next year. Somebody else got to be in here. I heard a fascinating conversation. I know I overuse that word fascinating, but on MLB Network this morning between Mark DeRosa and Sean Casey, they're talking about Volpe and they're saying like watching him, they get the impression that he is trying to become almost like a Dustin Pedroia type figure of a smaller guy who can pull the ball for lots of power. And yeah, he hit a pretty solid amount of home runs this year for his profile, but he's also strikes out a ton and gets into some awful slumps where they said, I would much rather he develop a little bit of a different approach, hit the ball where it's pitched, right? Go up the middle, go to right field. And maybe you're only hitting 8-9 home runs a year, but you're getting on base way more often and play some solid defense. Like on that team, that is the role he needs. So somebody needs to get in his ear. They were saying like some of these younger players might need a little tough love. Like Volpe and Austin Wells, they looked like offense was their strength in the minors. Like they were going to come up here and that was what they were supposed to do well. And it just hasn't turned out. Wells has had his moments for sure, as Volpe has. But overall, if you look at the overall numbers, it's been a little disappointing on the offensive side of them. Ben Rice, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I've said a few times, the underlying metrics look like what he did this year is legit. But is he going to be a platoon guy, or are you going to give first base to him? I know he can catch too. I don't think that's going to happen, at least on a full-time basis. But if Goldschmidt's out of here, I know there's been other rumors, Pete Alonso, stuff like that. You and I talked about that a little bit this morning. Like, are you really going to go get Pete Alonso? You're going to put him with Judge and Stanton? Like, yeah, that looks really cool in like a video game, all those big dudes, big beefy guys, right, that can hit bombs. But defensively and the DH spot, like you're clogging things up even more, which is already a problem. So maybe they give first base to Ben Rice. I'll find that fascinating. But the Volpe thing, to get back to that very quickly, a lot of people's immediate suggestion, and I've mentioned it too, is Bo Bichette. He fits what you just said a minute ago, a guy that can hit for high average and get on base. He's one of the very best. The problem is he's defensively, at least by the metrics, worse than Volpe. One of the only guys at shortstop in the league this year that, if you look at the defensive metrics, is worse than Volpe. And I've tweeted about this earlier in the year, and some Toronto fans got pretty upset with me and said, I watch him and those metrics are incorrect. And I say the same thing about Pete Alonso sometimes as a guy who watches him night in and night out. Like, his defense to me does not look as bad as the metrics say. So there might be some of that. But your thoughts on a Bo Bichette coming here, somehow getting rid of Volpe, someone that believes in him, maybe just get him out of New York. We think he can be really great here. And you fill that hole with a free agent Bo Bichette and steal him from the Toronto Blue Jays. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that definitely looms large. You mentioned the last part, stealing him from the Blue Jays. The Yankees are looking for a win, but I think the defensive stuff, there's something to that. We don't watch Bichette on a daily basis. You mentioned the Blue Jays guys, but those numbers mean something. And I think Bichette's defense has largely been uh, a problem in his game. Offensively, he came alive this year. He's been the player they were expecting him to be before getting hurt, and maybe he'll be back for the ALCS. That's a big piece, and fingers crossed for the Blue Jays that he is, but you're not getting better defensively. And I think you need to get better defensively down the middle to improve this Yankee team. Offensively, I understand Volpe went through horrible pits of despair as far as the offense goes. But when he was right, he was a guy. And if we're looking for a player, Volpe was the guy, you know what I mean? And my biggest thing is a lot of Yankee fans are looking for this superstar shortstop that you can just sign. And yes, Bichette fits that mold in the offseason, but they're also expecting, make a trade for a shortstop. How many teams out there that have a superstar shortstop that does, defensively is aces, and then you have a guy offensively? How many guys are putting him on the market? You can't just snap your fingers and get a guy in one of the more important, maybe the most offensive important positions in baseball. This is the quarterback of the defense. If you're or the center fielder, they're so important. If you're vulnerable in center field in the middle of your defensive alignment, you played baseball a long time. It compromises everything. One of the things I saw, and this is all hypothetical, and Texas would have to agree to this, but I know they're trying to cut some salary. But what about Corey Seager? Have him play shortstop in New York and give them a nice little package. Maybe you have to include one of your highly praised prospects and give him away. I think Corey Seager would be a huge piece that would upgrade the defense. And offensively, Yankee Stadium, how could you not love that?
Yeah, I mean, it could get very interesting here if they have some balls this offseason. Some other conversation, Joel Sherman brought up the idea of possibly exploring trading Jazz Chisholm. Not that he wasn't saying they should, but next year will be his walk year. I know you're a big Chisholm fan. I said to you yesterday, like, obviously the skill set is there. He's a 30-30 dude. It comes quite naturally. And sometimes it only seems like he's scratched the surface of what he can do. There's something about him that just does not seem like a winning player. Like, you're not going to win with him. And I might be completely off. It's more of a gut thing. So I'm not going to point to A, B, and C. I mean, sometimes the reactions we see from him, he had the booted ball that ended up being a huge moment in Game 5, turning his back to the media. We just praised Kirkering for standing in front of his locker and answering questions after one of the worst baseball moments we've seen. Chisholm couldn't look these guys in the eye after just not playing in a game. That's another conversation. It'd be an interesting exploration what you could get back from. I mean, I'm tying all this together and getting a little crazy, but like, move Volpe to second. Maybe it's less pressure. Maybe he does better there. Get Seager in here, trade Chisholm for something that could be useful. I don't know. We're getting nuts, but there's that. Then there's the Bellinger stuff, the Grisham stuff that looms large. Grisham, someone was saying they wouldn't be surprised if they give him the qualifying offer and then explore trading him afterwards if Bellinger is still here. But if Bellinger's not, at least you gave him the qualifying offer, and Grisham's almost your backup here. If Grisham's not here, who's playing center field? Is Bellinger brought back and he's put there? Is Dominguez getting a shot there? Like, there's so many questions. Like, we came into this podcast actually actively saying, like, let's not go crazy talking about the Yankees because we'll probably talk about them in the offseason. But it's kind of hard not to, because one question just goes into another one with them.
Yeah, and I also think it depends on how they feel about these young players. Do they believe in Spencer Jones? Do they, more importantly, believe in Jason Dominguez? Or do they see enough to believe he's not the answer in the outfield for them? And only they can answer those questions. I mean, their actions speak louder than words of how they utilize Dominguez essentially as a pinch runner from mid-September on. He got one at bat essentially in that series and was a non-factor. So we'll see. I think everything's on the table for this Yankee team. I think the trades are certainly out there if it makes sense. Trading Chisholm wouldn't bother me as long as the get back is there. I do believe he can be a winning player. He's, I think, only the third Yankee player to have a 30-30 season outside of Alfonso Soriano and Bobby Bonds. So what he did was historic, and people will point to, yes, the bases are bigger, it's easier to steal bases. He still did it. 30-30 season. Nobody else has done it in a Yankee uniform in a very long time. So, and I understand it comes with some of the character concerns, the stuff you see, the Manny Machado type of behavior that people point to. I know people are clipping the Aaron Judge reaction to losing, standing in front of the locker, and then Manny Machado calling the San Diego reporters inept for asking questions like, how does this loss feel? It's two different approaches, but at the end of the day, this loss should be illuminating for this team. And in a lot of ways, this offseason is a little bit even more important than the one that they lost Soto, which is crazy to say, but I think it is.
Yeah, it's wild. It's like a wild thing to say. It's just interesting because in a lot of areas, they were better this year than they were last year. I know you said there's still, as a Yankee fan, you feel like so many things they need to clean up, but they were better in almost every big area, even losing Soto. Hit more home runs, better defensively, even if they might not have been great. They did get better in a lot of places, but the result was the same, if not worse. Um, yeah, I mean, listen, we'll save some of the Yankee talk, I think, for the offseason. Hopefully, we do get one of those guests. If not, I feel great about putting an hour together ourselves. We follow them pretty closely, especially you as a Yankee fan. But we will be looking to get, we're gonna have some time in the offseason. So some of these teams that have really interesting free agent questions, we're gonna try to dive deep into them. And just an update here as we sit here about an hour into the pod, a little less than that. Detroit and Seattle are in the bottom of the 7th. Eugenio Suarez just drove one to the wall with a man on base, and it got caught by Kerry Carpenter. And these fans are living and dying on every pitch. I know what that feels like, and it's a tough watch. But first and second now, with 2 outs against Kyle Finnegan, so they're threatening here. This is one of those nail biter types of games.
So it brings us to our conversation about what ALCS matchup favors Toronto. So both the potential opponents really pose some different tests for them. So if Detroit's able to hold on to this 2-1 lead in the bottom of the 7th here at T-Mobile Park, then the Blue Jays do catch a little bit of break. Tarek Skubal's game 5 will likely sideline him for game 3, which leaves until game 3, I should say, which leaves like kind of a softer early series rotation for Toronto, as you mentioned, maybe to exploit. And the Tigers defense has been shaky at times, and against a team, like we mentioned, immensely with the Blue Jays that forces contact, that could definitely prove costly. And then add in the fatigue of some cross-country travel and some Rogers Center crowd, I think Toronto would enter with almost every edge. Now with Seattle, I think the challenge shifts because the Mariners pitching, their airtight defense, I think it could neutralize Toronto's power and the burst that they have offensively. Games at T-Mobile, like the one we're seeing tonight, tend to play some tight. We got the 3-2, the 4-3. It's 2-1 tonight, where one swing, an error can swing in other directions. I think the Jays' contact-first approach does travel well, and I'm curious to see these teams matching up. They definitely can pressure defenses. They grind out defenses, and they grind out at bats, and they win with some sequencing instead of just the slug. And we saw they had some slug as well. I think Detroit looks like the better matchup for Toronto on paper, but I think if Toronto wants to be more than a great story, if they want to be champions, I think they need to be able to play everywhere. And I think Seattle certainly blends a little bit for them as well. So I'm excited to see either one of these matchups, and we're going to go down to the wire and see who's able to emerge out of this division series between the Tigers and the Mariners.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do think the Tigers are the softer matchup for the Blue Jays. I still look at the Tigers as just a slightly incomplete team. I feel like they can go real quiet on offense at times. And it's partly because some of their best players, like a Riley Green, they sometimes go in funks where they're just striking out every time. Super high launch angle. It's a risky swing where it's a lot of all or nothing type of stuff. So the Tigers kind of, I know the pitching staff at its best can actually be very good, right? You got Skubal twice in the 7-game series. Casey Mize has been pretty good, not necessarily giving tons of depth, but pretty good in the postseason. Jack Flaherty, tons of postseason big game experience. Like another guy who can be Jekyll and Hyde at times. But if you look at that Mariners pitching staff, and if they were to get Brian Wu back, I mean, that can match up with anything. My worry about Seattle is I don't know if they can match up offensively with the Blue Jays, who just grind you to death, get on base, put the ball in play over and over. I mean, we've seen the Mariners. They're not exactly lighting the world on fire most of these games on offense. So I think the Blue Jays have both of these teams' numbers if they meet in a 7-game series, to be honest. Although, like I said, I don't exactly fear the Blue Jays rotation, and I don't think the bullpen is going to continue being as good as they've been. So I think either of those series are pretty unpredictable. I like the Blue Jays over both teams if you are forcing me to make a choice. And I think they'd have a little bit of an easier time against the Tigers if I'm trying to make a prediction right now.
So moving to the National League side, we already discussed the Phillies collapse in the era by Orion Kerkering, and I think more of the conversation should shift towards the Dodgers while we have the bye week for them or a little bit of time off. And the Dodgers conversation, we talk about the pitching staff carrying them. Tyler Glasnow was brilliant through 6 scoreless innings. He struck out 8. Roki Sasaki entered after the cramps took Tyler Glasnow out. And he delivered one of the more composed relief outings of the postseason. 3 no-hit innings, 2 strikeouts. And Roki Sasaki's been a revelation. You discussed it last week about him being the secret weapon in the bullpen to really cement what has been a weak point for the Dodgers, the one Achilles heel that they do have. And Sasaki, I mean, a lot of people are talking about him at this point. Glasnow was talking about it in the post game. He said, for what he's been through to throw innings like that in this spot, it's incredible. We'll need him the rest of the way. Tanner Scott will be sidelined after the emergency abscess was noticed here. Blake Trinan is struggling. So Roki's emergence might just be coming at the exact right time.
Tie game.
We got a tie game here.
Tie game 2-2, man. Oh, this one's going to be fun, man. Rivas comes through here down the line. Run comes home easily. Crowd going nuts. 2-2, bottom of the 7th. Holton is in for Detroit, by the way. Men on first and second right now. Who's coming up here? Place is rocking. Even silently, I can tell. They're going crazy. I think we have a crier again. Almost. No.
Are they wearing Mariners? Are they wearing Mariners gear this time? Or are they wearing Bananas gear?
I know you're upset about it.
How does the guy show up to a game? And if maybe the guy could reveal all and just say like it's his lucky Marshawn Lynch jersey or something. He wore a flannel over a Seahawks jersey with the Bananas hat, and he's hysterically crying about the Mariners. You're not rocking a Mariners hat at the game, the biggest game they've had in 25 years. What are we doing? He's rocking Mariners gear, by the way. He's wearing old. That guy's a true fan right there. That's the dude right there.
It kind of helps that you're delayed because I can mention something and then you can kind of wait for it and react to it. By the way, inning over, Victor Robles rolls over to third base on the first pitch. So 2-2 heading into the 8th. Ooh, it's going to be a lot of nails being bit the next half hour or so here. This one's going to get real spicy.
So we did spend a lot of time talking about the bullpen last week, and we already talked about Roki Sasaki. I mean, maybe we can talk about the Clayton Kershaw moment, but I really want to talk about Shohei Ohtani. And I know his NLDS was uneven. He was commanding on the mound, and a word for it at the plate was confounding. In game 1, he struck out 9 across 6 innings in the postseason debut for himself. He just went 1 for 18 with 9 strikeouts, and his lone hit obviously was the game-winning RBI in game 2. So his presence does reshape games. You know, he's intentionally walked to face Mookie, even though he was struggling. That faced a lot of criticism as well. What are your thoughts on Shohei struggling? Because I feel like he's struggling the most we've seen in a big spot in a very long time. Even last year when his shoulder was bothering him, I feel like he wasn't struggling this much.
Yeah, 1 for 18, 9 strikeouts, like you said, 2 walks in that series. I give a lot of credit, and I tweeted about it today with a couple of little video references. I give a lot of credit to the Phillies, whether it be Christopher Sanchez, Jesus Luzardo, Strahm looked good against him a time or two. And a lot of that's the lefty stuff. And I feel like obviously there's a book on Shohei and it's not that easy to follow, but when you're hitting your spots, you really can do it. With that being said, man, like the fact that he's given this pass and gets to the NLCS anyway, I would be fearful of what he's going to do. If I'm the Brewers or Cubs facing the Dodgers, you talk about being due. Like this guy is due to go on a run. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, I think it's this. I mean, a lot of those swings were awful looking. He's swinging shoulders way out. He's swinging out an outside pitch. He's not even close. Even if he touched some of those, they're going to be little dribblers. Nothing much is going to come out of some of those swings. But he's the type of guy who can look really bad. And then the next thing you know, he's hitting a 500-foot home run and he's doing it again 2 innings later. So I'm not to the point where I'm concerned about him. If they lost, he would have gotten a lot of criticism. So he gets a little lucky there. You mentioned Mookie Betts, the intentional walk to get him. This is one of my favorite stats I've seen in the last week or so. Bob Nightingale tweeted, in Mookie Betts' career, 23 times a batter was intentionally walked in order to face him, twice with David Ortiz, 21 times with Shohei Ohtani. Man, that says a lot about Shohei Ohtani when you're walking him 21 times to get to Mookie Betts, who's an all-time great as well. Sooner or later, teams will learn that the man is clutch. In those times that I just referenced, Mookie has gone 526, 10 for 19, 5 doubles, 1 home run, 3 walks, a sac fly, and 18 RBIs. So that man knows how to deal with the guy in front of him getting intentionally walked. I'm sure he takes it personally, like the old Michael Jordan meme. But I thought that was a really cool stat to see. The dude is clutch in those situations.
No, for sure. It definitely is a chess game with these managers, and sometimes they don't play out. And like we mentioned before, there's not as much conversation on the Clayton Kershaw going back out for the 8th inning in game 3, the 2-run game that unraveled into the 8-1 blowout. A lot of the beat writers were talking about sending Kershaw back out there being idiotic. And even felt like there was a lot of tension, even on the Philly side, watching Kershaw kind of do that in the moment. But let's talk about the Dodgers waiting on either team. Chicago or Milwaukee awaits them. So they're going to await the winner of Saturday night's game 5 between the Cubs and the Brewers. And whoever survives this slugfest in Milwaukee will stumble into Chavez Ravine, jet lagged and drained, where rested Dodgers will await them. And the defending champions already have their rotation mapped out. Blake Snell in game 1, Shohei Ohtani in game 2, ahead of the travel day, followed by Yamamoto and Tyler Glasnow. And looming obviously in the background is Roki Sasaki ready to come out of the bullpen. So the Cubs and the Brewers will decide how to get there. So Matthew Boyd redeemed his rough game 1 outing by silencing Milwaukee through 4 2/3. They won 6-0, even the series. Ian Happ's 3-run home run off Freddie Peralta kept Chicago's season alive and sent the series back north for one last clash. So we can talk about this ticket to the NLCS and the stuff that we see between the Cubs and Brewers. It felt like it was always coming back to this. Maybe people didn't have confidence that we were going to see a game 5 with the way the Cubs looked in the first 2 games. But the Cubs fighting back, winning both games at Wrigley to force a winner-take-all in the first postseason series between these 2 longtime rivals. I mean, really awesome. Chicago, as we mentioned before in the preview, took the regular season series 7-6. So the Brewers, meanwhile, are chasing their first postseason series win since 2018. Your thoughts on this? Because we don't have the announcement of these players that we don't have the announced starters yet. Shota Imanaga is detailed to potentially be starting for the Cubs, but this is all hands on deck in the game 5.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Man, this just seems like the type of series and is going to continue following the trend of home team wins. I kind of get that feeling. The Cubs looked like a different team, like just a more energized team in front of the Wrigley Field crowd. Going back to Milwaukee, that crowd, man, like they don't want another at-home heartbreaking elimination. They're going to be putting all their energy out there. I will say the one thing that scares me a little bit, as Javi Baez almost just hit a game-breaking home run, but it gets caught by Julio deep in center. Man, that guy is swinging the bat, and he's not striking out. It's incredible what he's doing suddenly when the lights are on. Anyway, back to Milwaukee. What scares me a little bit is that they used Freddie Peralta, their biggest bullet, in game 4, and it didn't work out for them. It kind of reminds me of when the Padres tried to use Dylan Cease last year to close out the Dodgers on 3 days rest, and it kind of imploded in their faces. It wasn't that as bad as the Cease thing, but it still scares me a little bit with going into game 5 without Peralta being your guy on the mound. So I lean Brewers as far as who I think is going to win that series, which is what I went with in the beginning anyway. As far as the other question of who is the bigger threat matchup-wise to the Dodgers, it's a toss-up in my mind. I've seen the Cubs play the Dodgers this year, and they're fun matchups because when both offenses are clicking, they can both slug the ball better than most teams in the league. The pitching side of things, I think the Dodgers would frickin' dominate. I don't love. I've made this very clear. I don't love the Cubs pitching staff. Their bullpen has absolutely saved them. They've been brilliant. Matthew Boyd obviously had a much better start his second time out than his first, where he couldn't get out of the first inning against the Brewers. But I don't know if he can uphold that. He struggled in the second half, and you go against the Dodgers lineup, it's super tricky. I'm going to say I think the Brewers have a slightly larger chance against the Dodgers in a 7-game series, because I think that form of small ball, they do have some slug, playing the right way, hustling, stealing bases, playing defense. I think that'll grind the Dodgers down a little more than a slugfest between the Cubs and the Dodgers, where the Dodgers may win out anyway because they have the better pitching. With all that being said, I mean, one of the biggest reasons, looking at Freddie Peralta's stats against the Dodgers, you got to like them in his career against all the current. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is the wrong one. I'll get you that stat in a minute. So I'm looking at Freddie Peralta against the Cubs, which is actually really good career-wise. But one thing I was curious with, I think a lot, is how good is your best pitcher against the Dodgers? Because you're going to have to match up against, whether it's Blake Snell or Shohei Ohtani or Yamamoto, these great pitchers in the Dodgers lineup. So I think it depends on how your best matches up against their lineup.
Everyone will be available. Jamison Taillon, he worked 4 innings in game 3. He's going to be ready in relief. Daniel Palencia will be key in some middle innings as well for the Cubs. Andrew Kittredge, Brad Keller, you name him, he's going to be available. For the Brewers, all hands on deck. There was some conversation, like I said, as we're recording, we don't know the starting pitchers yet. Maybe Jacob Mizorowski is going to be starting. Maybe he's available in bulk for them. But we know it's win or go home, so all these arms would be coming out. So some of the numbers here, and I want to bring up some of these facts, which has fascinated me. Michael Busch has 4 playoff home runs and a 792 slugging percentage, and he is a big reason Chicago is the first team ever with a first inning home run in 4 straight postseason games. So crazy to think about that number. Milwaukee is 3-10 in potential postseason clinching games, which is the lowest winning percentage among any franchise. This team has no bearing. Like, this isn't the Brewers from 10 years ago. This isn't the rookie weeks Brewers, but still something to think about. Maybe they're not thinking about it as well. We got some injuries to discuss as well. Obviously, Kyle Tucker remains limited to DH duty as he works back from that calf injury.
Big home run last night, though.
Looks a little bit better for sure. Cade Horton threw a simulated bullpen on Friday, but he's not eligible for Game 5. So maybe if they get to the NLCS, Cade Horton will be there waiting for them. And Jackson Chourio continues to battle a tight right hamstring, but remains in the lineup. And Pat Murphy called it and confirmed that it's affecting him slightly, but not worsening the injury. Ian Happ, the 3-1 home run was big to spark the Cubs offense because he was only hitting 115 overall. So if they get him going, it's a really big deal. Bryce Terang for the Brewers is struggling right now, 2 for 16, 7 Ks in the NLDS. And Jackson Chourio, I mentioned him before. He has a hit in all 7 postseason games, 462 batting average overall. So a lot of things to talk about here. It's win or go home. Baseball does not do well when it's boiled down to one game. We love watching it from afar. And honestly, it's a coin flip. This is a coin flip game. I think both these teams have been evenly matched all year. The momentum's probably on the Cubs side that they overcame an 0-2 deficit, but it would not shock me if it went either way. I think the Brewers are a tougher matchup for the Dodgers. I do. The Cubs will certainly, I think either way, the series is going 6 or 7. I think both these teams will battle tooth and nail when they get there. And the National League is going to be a grind to get to the World Series.
Yeah, and by the way, update here, Kerry Carpenter is up as we speak, 3 for 3 tonight. The couple huge home runs in the series, obviously. It's now a full count. The bases are empty, but the crowd looks like they're super nervous, as they should be, with this guy at the plate and what he's done against them so far. So we'll update you, obviously, as we go through here. But yeah, to touch upon that, I do think your usage of the word coin toss, I think that's what it is. I think that's what this game that we're watching, we felt like it was going to be the same way. I feel the same way about Cubs, Brewers. They know each other so damn well. They're going to use everything they have left, like you said, at their disposal. So a super interesting matchup. I don't know if I believe either of them have a chance against the Dodgers right now, to be honest, unless they can keep it close late into the games, because I think that Dodgers bullpen is still that big weakness. As we've said many times, Roki Sasaki can't pitch every single bullpen inning out there. We know that. So Carpenter gets on with a walk. Not the worst case scenario, I guess. We'll see what happens from this point. But just to go one more thing with the Dodgers, I know you and I were talking a little bit before we came on about the idea of talking about if they win a second in a row, are they in dynasty territory? So give me your thoughts before I tell you mine.
Well, I mean, they are a model of sustained excellence. That's, right now they're chasing immortality. 2 World Series in the past 5 seasons, 2020, of course, 2024. It would be adding a second straight. They've made 8 NLCS appearances since 2013. No team really has blended the spending effect, scouting, development with a lot of the consistency we're seeing from the Dodgers. I mentioned the crapshoot, the postseason. They seem to be immune to that because they're able to get to the triumph, to the spot. We can think about the heartbreak for this Dodgers team in 2017, 2018, 2021. It was trying to put the cementing effect on that shortened season World Series. 2023, I think these October lessons hardened them. And I think it did humble them a bit. It made them a better team. And now they're 4 wins from another pennant, 8 from a third title in 6 years. I think the goal right now for them is to finish this. And it's hard for me to say this is a dynasty. I mean, maybe the conversation volleys back to you. Do you believe the Giants teams that they won in the even years, were they a dynasty?
Ooh,
I'm not sure. I think if they win, I think that it's worth having the conversation, and we have to redefine what a dynasty is.
Yeah.
They have been a machine. As I mentioned, they're a model of sustained success. I'm not sure if I'm able to use the word dynasty, but I mean, if not them, then who? Because they have been as successful as any franchise in the last 30 years of baseball.
Yeah, I feel like the usual barometer for dynasty in sports is at least 3 in a row, or like 3 out of 4, I think some people say passes. But they've been in the thick of things for so long, and they have that 2020, Mickey Mouse World Series title. And last year's, I lean towards saying yes, even if it's only 2 in a row, because 2 in a row in Major League Baseball is so nearly impossible. When was the last time a team won 2 World Series in a row?
The Yankees back in the
Right.
90s, yeah.
So it's been a long freaking time. So I know some people will probably be offended if they win a second in a row and people start saying dynasty for 2. I wouldn't be one of those people that would be offended because
But
it's
3 of
so
6 though.
rare
That's the thing. 3 of 6 is feels different than
in
of 3
baseball.
than 2 of 6. You know what I mean? 3 of 6 in
Right.
baseball feels, especially in the way this league has parity, it feels insane.
Yeah, and it would be another thing if they were insignificant those other 3 years they didn't win, like they're missing the playoffs completely, but they're always right in the thick of things. So another thing just to point out with if it was Milwaukee or the Cubs against the Dodgers, one little thing to think about: in a 7-game series, home field advantage maybe weighs a little more heavily. I know it's there's a lot of stats to show that it doesn't actually matter that much in the playoffs, but if it's Milwaukee gets the home field advantage. If it's the Cubs, the Dodgers were 1 game better and won their division, so the Dodgers would get the home field advantage in the comforts of Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. Andres Munoz looks a bit nervous and shaken out there, which is one thing we've heard Mariners fans say. As filthy as he is, he scares them a little bit in big moments, gets himself into trouble. He has officially done that. He walks his second batter in a row with 2 outs. I do not believe he's recorded an out. So things are getting hairy here in the top of the 8th for the Seattle Mariners.
So as we move towards the forecast for the future of baseball, the Arizona Fall League is quietly kicking off here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And you guys are probably seeing clips out there and watching this. I know if your team is not in October anymore, there's a lot of future hope that you can look at. And there's a lot of names that most fans have not really heard of being whispered by scouts, front offices, and writers who really know what's coming next. And the Arizona Fall League is something to watch for. Of course, you're not going to have your attention on it outside of the meaningful games, the biggest meaning games in all of baseball. But the Fall League has always been baseball's laboratory. I mean, they did the in-game experiments, they use this as a barometer to try things out. And I think this year's edition right now, the talent's younger, the arm's a little bit louder, and the sense of urgency is unmistakable. And there's a lot of conversation about Sebastian Walcott of the Texas Rangers. It's easy to forget that he's just 19. I feel like we've been hearing his name for a very long time. Obviously on a field full of college draftees and advanced AA players, this shortstop carries himself with composure of a veteran. I think he already knows the spotlight will find him soon enough. And he was the youngest regular in AA this summer. Walcott finds himself as one of the youngest in the AFL, and he seems unfazed. I mean, this is a guy who I mentioned kind of frees up, as I mentioned before. Maybe the Texas Rangers move on from Corey Seager because they have the talent behind a Sebastian Walcott. So your thoughts on him? I know you've heard a lot about him. Feel like there's a calm before the arrival where we could see him in 2026.
Yes, still so super young, but I mean, like we've said so many times on this show, that is the trend. If the talent is there, age is just not going to be what stops a franchise from bringing these guys up if they've proven themselves at every level. So do I think we could see Walcott next year? I mean, by what I've heard from every scouting report and what he's looked like and how he's improved over the years, sure. I love that he's playing in the Arizona Fall League, that he doesn't see himself as too big for it. And that could be a big part of his development. We talked to Chase Selesky, who was a part of it last year in the Nationals organization in the Arizona Fall League last year, and he raved about the experience. And everyone says, like, just go there and try to learn as much as you can from as many different people that you may not get to talk to at other times, from different franchises, different coaches, and get different perspectives. So, yeah, I mean, Walcott's one of those guys, top 5, top 3 type of prospect, all the talent in the world. With that being said, man, like we've talked about this all the time. Just a week or two ago, we're watching Ahmed Rosario get a start for the Yankees, and you kind of looked over at me and said, didn't he used to be he was like a high prospect at one point for the Mets, right? And he was the number 1 prospect in the league, and he didn't turn out to be a superstar. Yohan Moncada, number 1 prospect, didn't turn out to be a superstar. So we don't know until they get here. But I will say, I feel like the offensive players, for the most part, the last couple of years, other than like a Jordan Walker and a few other guys, most of them have turned out pretty well, that have been that highly rated. So maybe things are getting a little more accurate with all the extra coverage that these guys get.
We also saw Rhett Lowder make his debut in the fall, and he's the first rounder from 2023. He was spent most of this season recovering from some injuries. First it was forearm, and then the oblique thing that hampered him. He really didn't have a chance to remind himself why he was a top 10 pick in the first place. So he was out there 2 innings, 21 of 23 pitches for strikes, 3 strikeouts, no wasted motion. Looked like he was in rhythm. He was compact, confident. He was as crisp as he's ever been. So everyone was looking at his fastball. It was around 96 with late sink. The slider was biting a little bit hard, and for the first time in a year, he looked like himself. So he was talked post-game. He said, it's been up and down, but I think I'm in a better spot than I was. And Rhett Lowder, if the Reds are looking to do something further, I mean, they could have used him this year, but if they're looking to do something in 2026, he might be a guy that they're leaning on heavy. So really excited to see Rhett Lowder healthy and able to go.
As a Wake Forest fan, I'm very excited to see Rhett Lowder. Again, another guy I'm happy to see go down there in the Arizona Fall League and try to get some things sorted, since he just missed out on so much, like you said, with the injuries this year. Did get a cup of coffee with the Reds before this season. So, I mean, he's a guy major league ready, got great stuff, great competitor, great attitude. I think Reds fans are going to be extremely lucky to get to watch him, and hopefully it turns out for him. We've talked about that Reds rotation. One of the biggest reasons I hope they spend some money on some offense this offseason, I won't hold my breath, but I hope they do, is because I don't want them to waste that exciting young pitching staff. Nick Lodolo, Hunter Green, Chase Burns, Rhett Lowder, like that's so damn fun. And guess what else it is? It's cheap. Go get some offense.
So we also saw one organization, the Chicago White Sox, sending both the highest ceiling position player and its top pitching prospect to the same AFL roster. And the White Sox are using this as a preview of their future course. So let's start with Braden Montgomery, fresh off a season shortened by a fractured foot. Wasted no time reclaiming some of that rhythm. We know he's a switch hitting outfielder, bringing some power from both sides of the plate. He used the batting practice into a spectacle. Hagen Smith, the 5th overall pick from Arkansas, he was throwing in the mid 90s, fastball, 84 mile per hour slider. That's already feels like a big league pitch. And they're not looking at the numbers here. As you mentioned, we talked to Chase Selesky about the numbers, and they're looking to experiment. They're trying to come up with poise situations. And both of these players look like they're going to be part of the White Sox forcing the decision sooner rather than later. So cool to see both these high ranked players playing together on the same team.
Yeah, definitely. The White Sox, I mean, that's what you want to see from this organization. These guys getting as much experience as they possibly can, however they can, because White Sox fans, man, they've put up with a lot these last few years. They're going to start getting antsy, like, all right, I want to start seeing these kids, and I want to see our team start moving up the standings at least a little bit, so we feel like progress is being made. So, yeah, Hagen, I mean, we watched him at Arkansas not so long ago, just lighting things up, whether it be the radar gun or the strikeout numbers. So they have a lot of fun pitching to watch as far as youth, that hopefully at least some of it turns out and they could be in better shape. That AL Central, they could make some moves there in the next couple of years if these guys turn out.
And we also have the Padres as well. I know that they faced that loss to the Cubs, and there's been a lot of upset fans, but the future is still bright. I mean, they're not as star-studded in the AFL. It was supposed to be Ethan Salas. He's sitting out to recover from back injury. So Lamar King Jr. is stepping in, and he's impressed with people with the athleticism and arm behind the plate. So he was calling some game with some boys, and people were talking about some praising. So remember the name Lamar King Jr. We also have Tucker Musgrove, Cannon Kemp, and Carson Montgomery, all former injured draftees returning to action and really showing glimpses of what could be a new wave of mid-rotation depth in San Diego, and they can certainly use it.
Yeah, I mean, again, same kind of thing. Having these guys rub shoulders with some of the higher prospects, and then also other coaches that they might not get to talk to or work with as often. It's just nice for them to get another perspective. And I'm a little distracted here as we are in the heat of the moment. Randy Arozarena, by the way, yes, the Mariners got out of it in the top of the 8th. Randy Arozarena at the plate against Will Vest, 1 out, nobody on. I'm calling it now. I just called it on Twitter, so I'll call it here too. This is Randy Arozarena postseason moment of 2025. We're getting the Randy Arozarena bomb right here.
I mean, he has been lights out in the postseason in history. It feels like this is his moment. We're going to watch it live on here. And as we wrap up the AFL stuff, what I really love about this is like the return of feel. And obviously data-driven development, all these players are being poked and prodded and figuring out arm angle. I think players here, we, like you mentioned, if you guys want to hear a little bit about the Arizona Fall League experience, listen to Chase Selesky talk about it. And he even mentioned Caleb Durbin, who was in the Yankee system and now playing a big part in the final run towards the championship. He's a big part of what the Brewers do.
Yeah. Crazy to think. Yep.
this is about instincts and human adjustment, which is, to me, refreshing. I think the return to feel of these players without the consequence of being scrutinized under the bright lights of Major League Baseball. I think this is so important for them to get the experience in Arizona, where like they'll post clips about it, but largely doesn't matter if these teams win. It's about just figuring it out and just, for feel, about loving the game again and escaping all the pressure that is with the data driven of doing things the way that's always been done.
Yeah, I think if Aaron Judge had his way, he would get a ticket to Arizona right now. One of his quotes the other night after the game when they were eliminated was like they asked him about like the offseason, and he basically said, I wish it was spring training right now. Like, I just want to continue playing. So maybe Aaron Judge would be like, you know what, guys, I'm going to play in the AFL here. By the way, they took the bat out of Arozarena's hand. They knew I was right, and they put him on first. I think they either hit him in a full count or walked him in a full count. So it's Cal Raleigh coming to the plate. Crowd's going nuts as he walks up.
Big moment here in the game at T-Mobile. And some of the other conversation about this Arizona Fall League of the Baltimore Orioles, I know they've been battered and beaten throughout this whole season, and they underwhelmed in every aspect. But Baltimore's AFL contingent left an imprint. They have a group of Luis De Leon, Ethan Anderson. De Leon, to put some context on him, he's a left-hander who's become quietly one of the Orioles' most polished arms. We may see him next year. He struck out 7 over the course of 4 scoreless innings. He had about a 98 mile per hour average fastball, rode through the zone, and people are very impressed with him. And then you go back to Ethan Anderson, a 2024 second rounder out of Virginia. He homered at an RBI single. He gunned down a runner at second. So there's a lot to be excited about with the Orioles, and we will talk about this during the season preview. I think there was a lot of regression with the Orioles that feels like it has to tilt in the other direction. They're going to be a very dangerous team, which goes back to the Toronto Blue Jays. It's so urgent that they capitalize on this year and win a championship, because I think the AL East is going to be a gauntlet where the Rays will be back, the Orioles certainly back, the Yankees going to be there, the Red Sox are only getting better. So this is the Jays' time to hang a banner. Flags fly forever.
Yeah, that's a good point. The Orioles are interesting. The Red Sox you mentioned, I talked about Phillies, Yankees, Mets as big market teams that I think are going to be in the thick of free agency and big decisions in the offseason. The Red Sox, I don't think they have as many decisions to make. They have a couple. They have the Bregman thing. They have Trevor Story as well. Those are pretty big. So maybe just not the quantity of what those other teams have. But I think they might be in the pitching market to get another frontline starter. The Orioles, they could be an X factor in the offseason, because we're talking about all these big market teams. If the Orioles finally decide with their new ownership that this is the offseason, they're going to put their wallet on the table and go make some moves, most likely pitching. Guess what they need? That could change a lot of things for all those other big market teams that I was just mentioning. So something to keep an eye out. Yes, the youth development for them is interesting and has mostly been great, but they need to go out and get some proven starting pitching.
No, I agree with that. And I think they can either rewrite the story. Of course, the Texas Rangers had the benefit of winning the World Series, but there's a lot of overlap with both of those teams where the regression, we just assumed it would get better and the Rangers would be back, and they weren't. So maybe the Orioles right a lot of wrong. I think they're too big to fail. I think they're too good to fail too. I think the Orioles system has turned out a lot of stars that the Jackson Holidays of the world. I mean, how many people could be wrong about this team? And you mentioned before emphasizing the pitching and putting the infrastructure in place for them to be successful and compete in this division. Maybe they go out and spend money on Ranger Suarez. Maybe they go out and spend money on some of these big ticket free agents that will fortify the bullpen and the rotation.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I mean, the Suarez fit does make a little sense, but I think the Suarez fit is going to make a lot of sense for a lot of different teams. Probably a little cheaper than some of the other guys out there. Not super cheap, but a little cheaper than some of the other guys that might be out there. Obviously, the trade market, I think, is going to be interesting this year, and starting pitching wise, maybe with a guy like Sandy Alcantara out there. Maybe a Freddie Peralta, just because Milwaukee, a lot of times, if they don't intend on re-signing a guy in his walk year, they'll go get something for him. Willy Adames was the exception to that rule, where they kept him through his contract and then he walked away without getting anything back. But for the most part, Milwaukee has made a point to make sure they get something for these guys that they know are not signing long term. So, and there's some other guys out there as well, but just a couple to mention. So Vest for Detroit gets out of it, strikes out Raleigh, strikes out Julio Rodriguez with a man on base. So we're going to the 9th here, tied up.
Going to the 9th here and potentially wrapping this episode up. I would love to see the finish line here, but either way, we'll be back previewing other things about the ALCS, the NLCS, the World Series. I think with the way things work out with the schedule, we may be able to have a proper live episode to preview the World Series. I think the preview episodes that we weren't afforded the time, and we got lucky because we got a lot of game fives. If we didn't have the game fives, we would have had a night off on Friday, would have been able to sit here and preview the series in full. But honestly, I think the two different paths we have for this American League Championship Series, the National League Championship Series, we gave you a lot on the table as far as preview goes. If it goes a certain direction, I think we feel pretty confident. And I thought it was a good blend of weaving together what happened. And there was so much news from week to week. With 7 days since the last episode, it felt like we hadn't recorded in about a month.
Yeah, which is nuts. It hasn't been that long at all. But I'll ask you this: with all this being said, the teams that are still remaining, your gut right now as you sit here on October 10th, who do you think's winning it all? Like, if you obviously it seems to change from day to day, but your gut right there, right now, as you sit there.
It's hard to go against the Dodgers just because of the familiarity of seeing them win and watching what they did to the Phillies. And I felt like the Phillies were a more well-rounded team and they were able to outlast them and do things better and get the situational hitting and wake up Kike Hernandez and find ways to get hitters that are non-existent in the regular season or just effective in October. I think the most well-rounded team is the Toronto Blue Jays. And maybe it's because I watched them up close, just dismantle my New York Yankees. I was super impressed what they did, as we mentioned before, outscoring them 34-19, out homering them 9-3. They felt undeniable and so well-rounded. The pitching could loom large, but if Trey Savage does anything close to what he did to the Yankees with that splitter out there against either the Mariners or the Detroit Tigers, the Detroit Tigers are very open for the strikeouts as well, similar to the Yankees. The Mariners themselves, they strike out a decent amount, but they are a little bit more patient and they could give Trey Savage a little bit more of some trouble. And it'll be curious because we like to make the comparisons, but comparing Cam Schlittler and what he was able to do against the Red Sox, be absolutely electric. Maybe one of the best starts we've seen in postseason history for the New York Yankees. Might be an exaggeration. Time will tell. But his second start was good. It wasn't as good. He was effective. He went into the seventh inning against the Blue Jays. But we'll see if Trey Savage can adjust, use the success we saw against the Yankees, and take on either the Tigers or the Mariners and build on it. I'm curious to see how he adjusts in his second start in the postseason, and just can he be as electric and as dominant now that either team will have a lot of video on the pitches he was using against the Yankees.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of agree with you. I mean, I think Dodgers Blue Jays would be a lot of fun, but the Dodgers, I feel like they just got away with a heist in that Phillies series, and I feel like you're not going to get Shohei Ohtani 1 for whatever it was, 18-19. With 9 strikeouts again in a series. I just don't think that's going to happen. And a lot of their stars haven't exactly burst on offense yet, and they've gotten away with it. And again, I've said this a few times. The words I used, I think, last episodes of I'm in love with that Dodgers pitching staff. Yamamoto is probably going to be better. You didn't get the best version of Yamamoto in that series. Blake Snell is a fantastic postseason pitcher. One of the top 3 guys, I think, in the league I would choose to start a playoff game for me if I needed someone and I could choose from anybody, to be honest. That's how highly I think of him in postseason situations. So I am at the point right now, again, feelings could change. If Seattle was playing their best ball, I would still stick with my Mariners over Dodgers pick. And I'll stick with it anyway, just because that's who I had. But honestly, if they were to match up right now, I'd fear for the Mariners in that series. But yeah, I'd have to go Dodgers right now. I want to ask you one more question here. We're trying to extend it a little bit so we can stay on while this fantastic Game 5 kind of comes closer to a conclusion. 1 out in the top of the 9th. Nobody on for the Tigers here. Munoz still in there, 19 pitches in. I posted this question on Twitter, and I was surprised it didn't get more traction because I think it's an interesting conversation. Aaron Judge, another year goes by without a title. Not necessarily his fault, obviously, but the truth of it is he doesn't have a title under his belt. And he's only getting older. Not super old yet, but he says he wants to play in his 40s. He's said that before. Who knows if that actually happens. If he, 2 outs now, by the way, line drive to the shortstop caught. If Judge ends his career without a World Series title, where in your mind does he rank on the list of maybe not just baseball players, but athletes, great athletes in their fields who have not won a championship?
I mean, my mind immediately goes to like the Karl Malones, the Charles Barkleys of the world, John Stockton, Allen Iverson here in New York, Patrick Ewing, Dan Marino. Like, I'm trying to think of other names out there that are similar to an Aaron Judge situation as far as greatness goes. It's ranks up there for sure. I don't think it's the most egregious, greatest player to never get a ring because, in my mind, Barry Sanders played for those Lions teams. He's one of the greatest players on the field, but never even sniffed anything close to it. Baseball, though, I mean, it might be close. Ken Griffey Jr. comes to mind for sure. Mike Trout comes to mind.
Barry Bonds.
Tony Gwynn comes to mind. These are guys. Barry Bonds for sure. He got an opportunity, too, and wasn't able to do it. I think it looms large. I think it's something. It's not going to affect his legacy. He's a bona fide Hall of Famer, and I think people make so much of it in New York. I think it's so overblown that the Yankees have to win the World Series, and they can't look at the success of each season. And I get caught up in that as well. I do as a Yankee fan, that I have such high hopes for the team every year, and you hold them to a high standard. When they lose to a Blue Jays team and they do things well, it frustrates you because this is something that the Yankees not only invest with the players in the field, they invest in the infrastructure. And how is a team on the other side of the field getting it so right, and you're not getting it right, and you continue to make the same mistakes year after year? So long story short, I mean, it does rank high. I don't think it's the most egregious superstar to not win a ring. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to rank, especially if you put all those. First of all, his career is not done yet, so it's hard to rank him not knowing where his numbers stand at the end of his career.
Well, Mike Trout's not winning a ring. So do you think Mike Trout is more egregious than Aaron Judge, or Aaron Judge more egregious than Mike Trout?
I think if Judge finishes career without a World Series win, Judge will be more egregious than Trout, not because we're not having who's the better player, but Aaron Judge as a part of the New York Yankees franchise who gets to the playoffs pretty much every year. I think that ranks higher. For sure. And as of now, Judge has been healthier as well. I mean, obviously he hasn't kind of gotten to that part of his career that Trout is at, but yeah, just because of the franchise he's with, fair or not, I think that makes it way more egregious. And, it's tough to compare to guys like Bonds and Griffey because their careers are done. So like comparing numbers wise doesn't necessarily make sense. But it's an interesting discussion to have. I had one person comment saying not very high at all. I thought that was kind of like, I don't know. I mean, what is not very high at all? If he's the 20th best athlete never to win a championship, I still think that's pretty high. Maybe he's talking like top 5. I don't know. But the other question I wanted to pose to you, I saw a report, and again, this is something, I mean, it was reported by SNY, I believe, so I don't think it's just pulled out of thin air, but there was a report that apparently it's come out that Eric Chavez, who's been let go as hitting coach for the New York Mets, had tried to change Juan Soto's hitting approach this season. And again, I don't know what the details of that were and how major it was. Maybe they were just trying to get him to be a little more aggressive when men are on base. I know that was a complaint when he played for the Padres. Like, yeah, walks are great, but like be a little more aggressive in these big moments. But it was a funny headline to read, like Eric Chavez trying to change Juan Soto's hitting approach. I mean, he's gone now. But your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, to change Juan Soto's approach just feels misguided, like, because you got Juan Soto to do one thing, and that was to hit the ball and do what he does well, and the patience. So it's the season he had this year, and we talked about it at length. It's not the reason the Mets were not in October. Juan Soto was as advertised, if not better. I would make the argument that although he had that big home run in the American League Championship Series in Cleveland last year, the overall scope of his year was more impressive this year because he added a different dynamic to his game. And people might argue with that, but I think Juan Soto, when the moment came to him, he took the baton and ran with it. But I asked the question, why would you try to change the approach? Because nothing's broken. Why would you it feels like you're just working on a car just to work on it. Like, leave the car alone. The engine's running fine.
That's a good comparison. I like that. All right, so we're high drama here in the bottom of the 9th. Since this is a live episode, I think we'll stick with you at least through the bottom of the inning here. Jorge Polanco's up at bat against Will Vest right now. 0-1 count, nobody on. High drama in Seattle, trying to walk it off in the 9th. That would be quite the scene. Polanco drives one towards the gap, and it's caught by Parker Meadows. Nice approach there. It looked like it might fall in. But as we stay here just for these last 2 outs, or maybe they don't get 2 outs and the game ends, do you have a feeling watching this game what's going to happen? Is there anything to lead you to believe one team or the other is going to end up with the win here?
Feels like the Mariners' momentum, and one of the conversations I had in the initial notes was the importance of home field advantage, and you mentioned it before. Whoever wins the NLDS series between the Cubs and the Brewers will determine the home field for the NLCS. And there is a lot of conversation about Philadelphia and the atmosphere there, the atmosphere at Yankee Stadium. I do believe that home field plays a part here. And I do think that there's a lot of pressure in a good way on the Mariners to want their home fans to rally behind them. There feels like there's a lot of tense energy there. And
Yeah.
in Philadelphia, I'm not sure who the beat writer was, or if it was I think it was a beat writer talking about this, where they almost said going to LA to try to overcome an 0-2 deficit was a benefit to not want to play home field. And Trevor Plouffe was talking about this on Baseball Today, saying it was ridiculous to even say you'd want to play on the road, especially in LA, a team that is coming off a World Series victory. But is there something to that? Like maybe the tension, like the players can feel how tense the Seattle fans are right now. Do you feel like that might have a negative effect on the lineup?
Yeah, I said that. I don't know. Did I say it on the podcast or did I? I might have tweeted it. That, and first of all, Nick Castellanos was the Philly team member who actually said, I don't know what you're referring to.
That's what
said, he's like, he said the Red October crowd, it's great, but when we start playing not as well or we go down, it's actually can be kind of hinder us. Which I mean, I don't know if that's something that needs to come out loud. I know Castellanos a very straight to the point guy, which is why some people love him. It is refreshing, I guess. But Bryce Harper then like tried to clean it up and say like, no, we absolutely love this. We wouldn't have it any other way. All that stuff. I wonder if those two get along really well, because I feel like Castellanos has criticized Thompson and Bryce Harper has then spoken up about how much they love Thompson. Then you had that moment. Eugenio Suarez goes down with a strikeout, so now down to their last out in the ninth. But yeah, no, I think there's absolutely something to that, especially in a city like Seattle that has just been starved for this. I said in that tweet after game 2 that I thought Seattle might be able to relax a little bit going to Detroit and playing in front of the Detroit crowd instead. And this game 5 moment, like, listen, both teams are feeling it now because, again, bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, tie game, losers going home. So I think all bets are off at this point as far as who's feeling that pressure. I think the answer for that right at this second is everybody. But Josh Naylor at the plate, 1-0 count here. We'll see what he can do.
And the thing is, too, we always rip on the Los Angeles fans getting there in the 3rd inning and leaving in the 8th or whatever. Maybe that's the benefit of playing there. It's almost like a neutral ground. And maybe that's hyperbolic. They can be passionate. They're definitely not as hostile as the San Diego crowd. A lot of teams out west have a little bit more energy in the ballpark. I wouldn't say Dodger Stadium ranks pretty high for me as far as hostile environments for the opposing fan base to witness their team play. That doesn't strike me as a place that's tough to play in for the other team. Is that misguided? Or because to me, it almost, Dodger fans have a reputation, and it almost is emphasized by the fact that they've done a lot of winning, which takes the fangs out of the fans a little bit, where they're not as hungry because they've seen the winning. We've seen it happen in hockey where you have these underdog fan bases that are just venomous. But when you win a lot, it sort of takes that away. It doesn't make it as tough to play. And I don't even think Dodger Stadium was ever that tough to play in, because fans seem the weather's nice. There's things to do in LA. I don't know. Maybe I'm pissing a lot of Dodger fans off, but they definitely don't feel like it's tough to play there. I don't know. I don't get that vibe when I watch the Yankees play there or any other team play.
Well, they've got a lot of criticism in the beginning of the playoffs here because there's lots of pictures going around. If you're a wrestling fan, it feels like people putting pictures out of AEW crowds with like one side completely empty and trying to dunk on AEW fans. But like there's a lot of pictures of Dodger Stadium with a lot of the seats empty. Dodger Stadiums will clap back and show the stats of how well attended they were in the regular season based on ticket sales.
Purchased, though. If you watch the games, there's a lot of empty seats there for being
right. Well, and then they'll go to the traffic thing. LA traffic's terrible, so it's hard to get there on time. The other day was a day game. There's a lot of excuses, I will say that. But they're also known for leaving early, like 6th, 7th inning. You see people like heading for the exits. Listen, New York has a lot of traffic too. We're definitely not known for leaving those kinds of games that early for sure. But Josh Naylor gets on base, line drive, hard hit up the middle. He got a pitch to hit, like a little more of an uppercut. That thing might be over the wall, but it'd be fascinating to see him steal second, as he did many times, shockingly, in the regular season, and have Rivas, who's the hero so far for the Mariners, who's up right now, drive him in with a little single. And they did just throw over. So the Tigers have the same thought. Oh, this is great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's sentimental to think about the Mariners and the Brewers eventually, if they could make it to the World Series, because you would be able to crown the first-time champion. And there's something to that. And we just spent a lot of time talking about the Yankees and their success and their drought, which extends to 17 years now. there's teams like the Mariners who have never done it. And the other poetic nature of the Brewers, and I didn't even think about this, but the Brewers, when they moved to Milwaukee, they used to be the Seattle Pilots. So they are almost interchangeably tied together, and they have not seen a lot of success as far as championships go on both sides. Like Mariners not having any, no World Series appearance. And like that 1982 World Series appearance for the Brewers is so long ago, before we were born. So I think it would be cool to see for these fan bases. Rob Manfred would probably hate it. He probably would sign up for, who would be the best option for him? It would definitely be the Jays and the Dodgers, probably, right? For the all of Canada versus LA big market team, the heel.
Yeah, listen, man, like, don't get too greedy. He got LA, New York last year. Rivas goes down looking. Nice pitch by Vest. Vest has looked very good, to his credit. So we're going to extras here. So we'll wrap this up a little bit. I think at this point, I will say this because it popped into my head. One other thing, and that's kind of the nice thing about holding on a little longer than we expected, is some things that we missed. Shane Bieber, we didn't talk about him at all. He gets his underwhelming start in that series against the Yankees kind of gets buried by the Blue Jays coming out the next day and winning the series. Before that start, a lot of people were talking about Shane Bieber as he'll probably opt out and he will be the #1 starter available in free agency. After watching him in that game, what are your thoughts on whether he opts out? And if he does, is he the top free agent? What kind of deal he could sign? I think his case right now is super confusing. And obviously now that they advance, he's going to get more of a chance to put some shine on himself. But as it stands right now, how do you see him going into free agency?
I just think he highlights a class that isn't cemented with this top line star. We talk about Ranger Suarez. There isn't the guy, unless I'm mistaken, that will be the Garrett Cole of the class that we were looking at in free agency.
There's no Garrett Cole. Yeah.
There's depth. And I think Shane Bieber has the history. He's won a Cy Young. He's looked like he's shown flashes of returning to his former self. And as you mentioned, I know the awards don't factor in the postseason, but free agency does. You make some noise in the postseason, you're able to have consistent starts. And let's be honest, I mean, the start against the Yankees wasn't great, but it wasn't the most egregious start we could have seen from Shane Bieber. It wasn't a Luis Heel blow up that we would see. So Shane Bieber, the velocity was up, which was important to see. He was locating pitches. I think it would be a big moment for him as far as free agency going. I do think he's going to opt out. I think he's going to test the markets, one last chance to get a bigger payday. And I think the location may matter, but these guys recognize when the gas is running out. We're watching Max Scherzer make a living on it, kind of do a little world tour on his last stops. And I think he's going to try to get the most money possible. Maybe the Jays ante up and pay him, but I think he's at least test the market.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. If he continues to not really impress in another playoff start or two, or maybe more, I could see a situation where he does opt out, but maybe take another short-term deal with another option to try, again, another prove-it deal of a full season of showing he's healthy and he deserves a longer contract. And like you said, get that one more, like his last chance to kind of get that lengthy, high AAV type of contract. They just showed a flashback of Randy Johnson, I guess, in a playoff series coming, I think it was against the Yankees, coming out of relief and looking like a freaking madman for Seattle. Logan Gilbert has come out of the bullpen to start the 10th against the Tigers here.
It's Walter, man. It's not Logan. It's Walter. He's pitching.
Oh, right. His alter ego of Walter is in the game. Man, this could be an all-timer here. This is a blockbuster.
Yeah, Gunther Gilbert's out there pitching right now. And like I said, all hands on deck. And this does affect game 1 of the ALCS coming up because you're emptying the can and you don't want to leave guys rested. The Zach Britton effect where you're warming up the bullpen and you have all winter to think about that.
Poor Buck.
But there is a lot of conversation about figuring out the way to get to the game and exhausting it. And that's what's like probably so painful for the Phillies, because you watch the way that bullpen was manipulated. And if you go to the 12th inning, it doesn't just affect that game where the Phillies have the advantage for that game. Going into a potential game 5, you could have had a situation where the depleted Dodgers bullpen could have been hurting. But we saw how it worked out too for the Blue Jays. You mentioned the bullpen game going well for them, only giving up the one solo home run to Ryan McMahon. And they had the gall to bring out Louis Varland again, fresh off of giving the Aaron Judge appearance. It would be the second, I think it was the third time he faced them. And you decide to bring him in, and the confidence was built up. So shout out to what they did over there.
Yeah, well, let's be fair. That Aaron Judge swing was fucking insane. That, I mean, it was a
1-of-1. It was a 1-of-1.
1-of-1. You can't put that on Varland. That's a good pitch. It's a nasty pitch that probably saws most people off. Like, that was insane. But yeah, I get your point. Still was a little surprising to see them put him back out there the next day after that stuff. But always cool to see these kind of situations, whether it be like Max Scherzer coming out of the bullpen or Bumgarner doing whatever needs to be done, just carrying the team on his back. To see these starters come out in big moments, it just kind of reminds me of baseball from a different time almost. But cool to see him out of the bullpen. We'll see how it goes. I mean, we saw Kershaw out of the bullpen the other night. It did not go well.
Yeah, and with the advanced stats, there was a conversation on Rates and Barrels with Eno Saris, and he was mentioning that year after year, there is support saying that as relievers start seeing guys the third time, fourth time in a short series, you start to get a little more vulnerable. The pitches are not as effective. And he was looking at the advanced stats for this year so far that it isn't the case. And like you, obviously, if statistics and routine will tell us that it's going to tip in the other direction soon enough. But I think that's why I was risky for Louis Varland, not because that pitch was a bad pitch, but because of the familiarity that the Yankees lineup was with facing these guys a third time. And they use Flaherty and they use Varland. They were bringing these guys out, trumping the knowledge of what statistics say of like bringing these guys out in a short series again and again and again eventually burns you. But I think in the other way, when you get the guys out, it builds confidence. And like now you have a Blue Jays bullpen that will be rested and confident going against the Mariners or the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah, for sure. And again, Brian Wu, I mean, the news about his health will loom large here as far as, now Kirby, like you said, Gilbert now getting some action in this game. Maybe Brian Wu is on the horizon of getting a game one start if he proves to be healthy. I mean, Bo Bichette is another thing injury-wise we're watching for. Is he going to be available in the next playoff series? Two huge health concerns or big news that we're waiting for. Gilbert goes 1, 2, 3, and we go to the bottom of the 10th. Another chance for the Seattle Mariners to walk it off in dramatic fashion in front of their home crowd here. So
what's the feel? You want to stay on here for the bottom to see if they do it, or are we getting out of here and doing the hype up of the social media, etc.?
Man, I'm a little undecided, but we said we were just going to go through the 9th. We've already lasted another extra half inning. So let's wrap it up. Maybe in the wrap up, we get a dramatic moment as the game comes back on the air. And if not, it's okay. It wasn't meant to be.
Well, as Devin mentioned, this was episode 109. So we'll be back with episode 110 sooner than later. But you can follow us on social media, on Instagram and on X. If you're on here, one of the many people that are here, not typing in the chat, but watching, we do appreciate you. But if you're not and only listen on audio, at Tablesetters Pods, we can find all the bonus content, updates, some of the polls Devin's been mentioning. Tablesetters is pretty much living on the X machine mostly. We are posting updates on Instagram, but for the most part, it's a vehicle where you can interact mostly with Devin, but you can also check me out at SGroundballTS is where you can find me on Twitter as well. Posting some conversation over there and engaging with baseball fans. That's what we love year round. Even when our teams are eliminated in excruciating fashion, we are still back here on the horse talking about baseball. That's what we love.
Yeah, how about this OptaStats, which is one of the best accounts on Twitter, and they talk about all sports, but lots of baseball stuff, and they just seem to find the best stats so quickly. Tarek Skubal is the first player in Major League Baseball history to strike out 13 batters in a game twice in the same postseason.
Wow.
And we're running out of things to say about that dude. He's another interesting case, man. He's coming up on his walk year, and apparently they tried a little bit this year to talk about contract extensions, and it was nowhere close. I wonder, like, if they're not able to kind of at least get close soon. I don't know. What does a Detroit franchise do with a guy like Tarek Skubal?
You would hope that they can get a World Series before he leaves, or like same thing when we watch these young players. And the apples to apples comparison would be the Connor McDavid stuff in the NHL, where he took a short-term deal where he could have turned them upside down and shaken the coins out of their pocket, but he took a $12 million deal and was willing to take less in 3 years, with some emphasis on the front office being like, all right, we've been to back-to-back cups. I think we can get it done. Surround me with talent. And I understand maybe it is an exaggeration to say it's apples to apples because of the salary cap that exists in the NHL, but there is something to be said about spending money and giving your team the benefit of the doubt that will provide support. And there's no doubt about it. The fact that there is no salary cap in baseball does loom large, but there is the luxury tax threshold that exists. There's a lot of other conversations that keep teams from spending at the same rate that they used to spend. So when you watch the Players Association, the union, that they're incentivizing and they're almost forcing the players to take the best deal on the table, a guy like Tarek Skubal, if they recognize that Detroit's window is now, and I'm not saying that they surrounded him with all the talent he needs to be successful, because if Skubal decides to go, God forbid, go to the Dodgers, he has a better chance of winning the World Series. But there's something to be said looking at the Connor McDavid effect, because, and I understand NHL is not the NFL, but McDavid is getting paid essentially what a third string tight end is making in the NFL.
Yeah,
or a role player in the NBA. And that money is money. But Connor McDavid is a generational talent, taking the hit financially, betting on the future, but also wanting to win now, recognizing I want to win. And I like to see that from the players. Go into a situation that makes you or gives you the best chance to win, instead of just going where the biggest payday is.
Speaking of win now, Victor Robles leads off the inning with a double, electric. JP Crawford at the plate, the number 9 hitter, looking like he might want to bunt. The corners are in. Reminds me of the Philly and Dodgers situation where it resulted in a wheel play and controversy about should they have bunted. This is a little different here. If you can get the guy over to third with less than 2 outs and try to win it with a sac fly or just a ball in play where you can't get the guy at home. It looks like Crawford's swinging away now, though. I don't see the bunt on at this point. I guess we'll stay on. We didn't expect it. We'll stay on through the bottom of this inning here now that we're here. I will say just about Skubal as we watch. He's not taking any short-term deal to kind of stay there for another couple of years. If you're a pitcher with all the pitcher injuries, guess when he wants his extension? This offseason, because he's at the height of his powers. 2 Cy Youngs in a row. I just told you the 13 strikeout twice in the same postseason, MLB history. If you don't get an extent, it's going to be a Garrett Crochet thing where it's like, no, trade me now to a team that is willing to talk contract with me. Because if you don't, he is going into next season with the risk of I could hurt myself and never get that contract that I feel like I am owed. I think he's going to play some hardball with the Tigers this offseason. And I think if they don't come to him with what he wants, I absolutely do not think it is pie in the sky to say that Tarek Skubal could be traded this offseason. Because that injury thing, it just looms large for these guys. JP Crawford now, it looks like there's a potential foul out. Nope, it lands in between 2 guys, so Crawford gets bailed out.
So there is the Paul Skeens comparison that always is ultimately on the table, this trade situation. And I'm sure Paul Skeens sitting at home and surrounded by a beautiful house and Livy Dunn and all the watching this, he has to feel a little bit of FOMO watching this and be like, it's not going to happen in Pittsburgh. I want out. There's no, and I understand he says the right stuff that Pittsburgh's a market he wants to be a part of. And he likes loves the fans there. He is Pittsburgh through and through, but watching a team that innately is never going to get to this point that we're watching Tarek Skubal have the opportunity to do that, I think it does affect it. And, you mentioned Tarek Skubal being traded during the offseason. If you're the Tigers or the Pirates, while they're at the height of their powers, and both these pitchers are not just good, they're generationally great, you have to consider setting your franchise up for the foreseeable future with the right package. If Mason Miller got what he got from the Padres, what are we talking about for Tarek Skubal and Paul Skeens, they're dropping numbers that are just at a historic pace? So it's important to really have the conversation. I know it hurts for Tigers fans and Pirates fans to consider that, but you can set your franchise up for 10, 11, 12 years with the infrastructure, the development, and the prospects you secure if you have the right deal in place.
No doubt about it. I mean, they have a little more. I mean, Pittsburgh has a little bit more leverage here with all the arbitration left for Skeens. But
they're not going to win, though. That's the thing. That's what's front. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe in a parity-driven league, you can have the Pirates be like, fine, we're going to spend. I don't see them getting off the mat, winning the Central, and being in this moment where you're going to see, like, how awesome would it be to see Paul Skeens pitching in this moment? Like, I'm sick of being the big stage of Paul Skeens. Going to be the All-Star game every year. Come on, let's have him on a big stage.
No, I'm with you. It's just that they have a lot more years of control is what I'm saying, where they can still use him as a draw, unfortunately, and wait until he's closer to free agency before they really have to make that decision, unless he does whatever he needs to do to force his hand. But Skubal is at that moment where if he really wants that major deal and he does not want to risk having it taken away from him because of an unfortunate injury next year, he's going to tell his agent, like, tell them we need an extension now. Otherwise, I want a exploration of trades where a team that is willing, like the Red Sox were with Crochet, to immediately talk to me about a legitimate long-term extension, big numbers. JP Crawford got sawed off, jammed, broken bat, fly out to second. Randy Arozarena up. Robles still at second. 2-2 count. Rosarena is swinging big, man. He's not just trying to hit a line drive to right field. He's swinging big. I'd like to see a little bit of a two-stroke approach and try to find the hole here, but I don't know if Randy has that in him.
Yeah, base hit wins it. There's a guy on second, and obviously the Mariners fans would go crazy watching this. And you see all the tense faces on the bench for the Tigers. And man, this is what October baseball is about. It is tense, and this is like it all drives towards this moment. And you tweeted this a while ago. If you're not watching baseball, I feel bad for you. If you're not watching this
Agreed.
and invest in this, it almost watching all these tight pitches with the Yankees. It just feels it hurts more than life itself to watch these games out on the wild. But when you the joy you feel when it goes your way, it's beyond words.
Rosarena goes down with a strikeout, just something you can't do. How is the guy not at third yet? They're failing miserably here, and I just feel like if they don't get the run here, they're going to lose. They are intentionally walking Cal Raleigh. You thought you might have a Hollywood moment right now, but it's still Julio up at the plate against Melton. Dude, I'm telling you, this is when you start getting that feeling. If they don't get the job done here after a leadoff double, I think the Tigers are going to win. I've watched enough baseball to know, like, if they miss this moment, I think they're in trouble.
Yeah, going back to the World Series that with Texas and the Cardinals all those years back to David Freese, we will see you tomorrow night, the back and forth. You remember when Hamilton, I think it was a 2 or 3 run home run in the top of the inning, and you thought it was over. And they were actually showing all the Rangers' faces, like going around doing the whole celebratory thing. And then it just all unravels. So, but chances are, though, you're right. It is a seesaw game where the momentum goes back and forth. And no matter how you slice it, when you leave a guy stranded, that is a momentum shift for the teams. And it's certainly one of those things where you can't let this opportunity pass you by, because as the game goes on, it's certainly going to be harder and harder to get that run across.
Well, Rodriguez grounds out to Javi Baez, and we are going to the 11th. A lot of air was just taken out of that stadium, and you gotta know a lot of those Mariner fans are feeling the same way that I feel right now, as far as thinking that might have been it. But all right, we went one extra inning longer than we thought we would. Let's bring it home now. Maybe we're the reason this is not ending. Maybe, do you think we can go like 18 innings without the Manfred man? This could be an 18, 19, 20 inning game for all we know.
Yeah, and I love what they've done for the game of baseball, and the things like the pitch clock has grown on me. The Manfred man has not grown on me. When the tension that's building in moments like this, when you have an organic man that got to second on his own volition, right, feels different and feels earned. But again, the ALCS will certainly be on the docket by the time you guys are listening to this tomorrow morning. If you're in the chat with us, we so much appreciate you joining our third live stream. Trying to make a habit of this through October. I do like this format because it loads properly on YouTube, no problem. And I just have to post the audio up, which is really cool. And then shout out to Devin for that new logo we have created for the postseason as well. I would love to see that on a t-shirt. That would be epic to get on a t-shirt.
I was saying, I mean, we've had some good reactions to that since I posted it, and it wasn't that long ago. And that was the first thing that popped in my mind. That'd be pretty cool on a shirt. I don't know if we can make that happen, but maybe we have to make it happen somehow.
Absolutely. And again, I want to talk to you guys about follow us at Tablesetters Pod on X and on Instagram. You can also go to Dugout Mugs and use the code TS10 to save 10% on your order. Grab something. Devin mentioned the steel canisters that they have to drink out of, the wooden bats, a lot of great stuff. That's not just baseball. They have football teams, college, whatever you're looking for. They have it there. Dugout Mugs is where you can get it. We appreciate their support as well.
Yeah, and you can TS10 gets you the 10% off. You can also just use our link, which is in our link tree on Twitter in our bio, and that helps make sure, because sometimes people have other discount codes that are a little higher, so they would rather use those, but you can still help us out by using our link to go to their page. That gives us a little kickback, just a way to support us. But keep on following us on X, on Instagram. We like that. We've definitely gotten, since the playoffs started, a lot more chatter back and forth with different people and in different threads, so we're enjoying it. Keep it going.
Yeah, if there's a guest out there that you want to see us have, if there's someone you like listening to that's centered towards a certain team, we're certainly looking to have more focus on teams in the offseason with the team-centric episodes, specifically the Phillies, potentially the Yankees. We think Devin and I do a really good job of covering the New York market, but it would be cool to have someone that covers the Yankees on a day-to-day on here But any team out there, if you guys listen to a team-centric podcast, you're a Brewers fan, or is there someone out there that you're a Cardinals fan, you want us to talk to them, and Devin can make fun of the Cardinals about their attendance and being the greatest fans of baseball.
I would never do that.
Devin wouldn't do that. He loves the Cardinals.
No, of course not. No way.
But we will have conversations in the offseason about all the things. So much to talk about. Like, I feel like we would still be dropping 2 episodes a week just to cover what's happening, even in the lull of the offseason. That's the beautiful part about baseball. And really, as we're discussing in the top of the 11th right now, every pitch does matter. Every swing could change this game and where it's going. And we'll continue to break down storylines and the rotations and the players that will continue to shape up October as we approach the final act here.
Yeah, no doubt about it, guys. We'll be back. Kerry Carpenter goes up the middle to go 4 for 4. Worst nightmare in Seattle. But we're going to sign off now and go watch the rest of this game and see what happens as those of you listening on Saturday morning or Sunday morning, or for all we know, Monday morning. You already know the results of this, but thanks for listening. However long you were here, if you're watching us live, thank you for coming on as well. And we'll see you very soon to talk about the championship series. Yeah,
we'll be back soon, and we'll talk to you after a while. And I'm going to finish off with this, and I'm going to make this a consistent thing now. Happy baseball.
High fly ball into right field. She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible